All right, everybody. It says it. So we are and you are. So we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, www.welikesports.vc presents to you their sports tag team champions of the world, the Cleat Geek Mike Valentine, Moneybags Mitch Middlebrooks, and we are the 6'4" 3 and out guys, and you are listening to the Sportz Truth. Woo! All right, already jumping on. Look at that. Numbers climbing. Boom, boom, boom. Excellent. That is good because, buddy, I think we got a great show for everybody today. Let's preview it a little bit before we get it really cranking on. All right, we are going to do all kinds of records today. We are going to be doing Florida State, Aaron Judge, Jameis Winston, just to name a few. We're going to be talking about the 12-team college playoff in college football. We're going to look at the teams who we believe are in trouble, the teams that we believe deserve a little bit more attention, and we're going to focus a second on one team that I wasn't sure, at least not this early in the season, is going to actually already be bowl eligible. And then we're going to focus on the big game for a second at the end of the segment. Then, can you believe this? I got Mitch Middlebrook to give me some great gambling advice on all of these college football conferences. We're going to look at all. We're going to look at the Jets. We're going to look at Lamar Jackson. We're going to look at Josh Douche, something like that. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. I'm sure Mitch will correct me. From the Patriots, we're going to look at Nathan Shepard. We're going to talk about the Sunday night game and one Nick Bosa and what he did. Then we're going to go to our 4-pitch talk, one of our favorite segments in the world because Mitch and I both are huge baseball fans. We know a lot of you out there are as well. We are going to look at everyone who may or may not receive the qualifying offer. All right. Whew. We got a lot of stuff to do, buddy. Kick us off. How your week has been?
Yeah, we do have a lot. I think this is a really good show. I love this time of year. We got every sport going. This little overlap here of a week or so, probably just about a week with the way this World Series is going. But yeah, it's been a good week. All these sports on, can't complain.
Right? Yeah, I'm with you, man. For a change, and I know those of you who are out there can't really see what Mitch and I see here. I write everything out pretty much before we get going, maybe not every single thing. But you're probably going to hear me flip through pages today a little bit in the background, which I apologize for. That's only because we got a ton of information. We got a ton of stuff to get to. I usually only have 4 or 5 pages. I've got like 8 pages I'm going to start flipping through. So if you hear little things in the background, you're like, what in the world is that noise? Well, that's because the microphone's like right there. You can't quite see it. I've got it off the screen. And then all of my notes are right beside that. So I apologize if you're going to hear that little bit in the background, but it's only because we love sports, right? All right, opening drive. You know how this goes, Mitch. I give you 3 things. You actually pick one, and we're going to talk about it for the next 30 seconds, and then we're going to jump into college football checkdown. But let me give you these 3. You know what? Let me give you 4 today. 4. All right? So here we go. You get to pick one of these 4 to talk about. You know what? I'm going to be nice to you today. I'm giving you 4, so I'm going to let you pick 2. All right? We'll do 30 seconds apiece. Here we go. FSU, Florida State University, is the first team to start 1-7 following an undefeated regular season in the last 70 years. That's number 1. 2. Aaron Judge has 20 strikeouts so far this postseason, not counting what he's got today. Where do you have the? Let me tell you, Mitch, you're going to be the designated keeping up on the World Series game guy. All right, because I got all this other stuff going on. You be that guy for us. If they score, if there's something that goes on, will you, just ding or something? Put your blinker on like I was doing last week, right? Whatever you need to do, buddy. But let me know, and we'll get all the scoring updates on there. So number 2 is Aaron Judge has 20 strikeouts this postseason with the one he got last night. Who has the most strikeouts in a postseason since 1995? If you decide to go with that one, I'll answer that question for you. All right. In his first game as a Cleveland Browns starting quarterback, Jameis Winston threw for 334 yards. Deshaun Watson has never thrown for over 300 yards as a Cleveland Brown. You want to talk about that and the Cleveland Browns? That would be great. Here's the stat that blows my mind. Whether you talk about it or not, I had to save this one for last. This is the reason why we're doing 4. I couldn't single this one out. It blows my mind. Here we go. The Jets lost when they scored 20-plus points, didn't commit a turnover, and held the opponent to 250 or less yards. NFL teams that did all of those things, which was, again, score 20 points, don't commit a turnover, hold your opponent to 250 yards or less, those NFL teams were 750 and 0 until Sunday when the New York Jets lost to the New England Patriots. Now they're 750 and 1. All right, buddy. I'll let you choose 2 of those 4. You want to go with FSU, Aaron Judge, the Cleveland Browns, or the New York Jets?
Man, I want to know all of them. Can I divvy up my 60 seconds and go 15, 15, 15, 15?
All right, I'll shut up and you go, man.
No, the one thing I'll say about FSU, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, there was a FSU fan who said if they lose, I believe it's their week 2 game. I can't remember who it was against, but if they lose, he would eat dog poop on his Twitter. He didn't do it, so he cursed FSU, and that's why they're having such a bad season. Second, I do want to know who the all-time leading strikeout in a postseason was. Aaron Judge has not had a strikeout today. Yankees actually have bases loaded in the bottom of the 3rd with Rizzo up to bat right now. They're down 2-1. 3, want to give a shout out to Jameis Winston because I won't say we were ragging on him, but we did have a segment last week. For those of you that didn't watch, go back and look. Find us on our YouTube at the 643 and Out Pod. Go back and look at that clip that we talked about Jameis Winston on because we spent a while
in the YouTube. Look out!
We spent a while on it, and we weren't so sure how we felt about Jameis Winston's comments about Deshaun Watson. But this shows exactly who Jameis Winston is. He's a really good teammate. His players and teammates love to play for him. Deshaun Watson had 19 games to get 300 yards passing, and he never did it for the Browns. Jameis Winston had 1 game to do it, and he did it, and he got the win, which is most important, against a really good Baltimore Ravens team that we both ranked in the top 3 in the NFL last week. Yep. So really, really big shout out to Jameis Winston for that. I hope he continues this streak and continues to do well. I saw that Jets stat as well. And honestly, all you can chalk it up to is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's a cancer to the team. It's a cancer to everybody. And I think we have to go back to number 2 as the Yankees hit a grand slam to go up 5-2.
Oh,
Anthony Volpe, grand slam, bottom of the 3rd.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you a follow-up to each thing here. So do you think the FSU coach is on the hot seat?
Yes, I think he has to be after this season. People will blame the transfer portal. They'll blame all the seniors graduating. That doesn't matter. To go from an undefeated regular season, a terrible bowl game last year for him, but to go from last season to this is just unacceptable. That seat's really hot, and even if it's not the coach, it's the optics of it, and he's probably gonna end up booted after the end of the season.
All right. So then I'm going to skip the strikeouts for a moment. I'll save that one till last. I'll give you who the strikeout leader is. I'll give you a hint, though. He's playing baseball right now, just not right now. Okay. So he's an active MLB player. He's just not playing in the World Series right now. How
Okay.
about that? All right. I'll tease you a little bit there. So Jameis Winston, he was very religious. He even quoted Eminem in the post game interview. I don't know if you saw it or not. Uh, can a guy be really religious and then turn around and quote Eminem? That's my question for you, buddy.
Yeah, that was a good one. I did see that. Honestly, I think Jameis Winston can do whatever he wants. He is a really funny, charismatic dude that I think can get really anybody on his side. So I really like Jameis. I thought it was really funny. I don't know if you saw his pregame clip. He was trying to pump some guys up, talking about, play for the guys on the back, play for the name on the back of your jersey, play for the name on your helmet. And then he stops, looks up and goes, "Oh, well, we don't have any decals on our helmet, but play for the Browns." And
Okay.
there's always just, anytime Jameis is talking, you got to listen, because there's always potential for something hilarious.
Yes, I will certainly give you that. And then, so should Aaron Rodgers retire?
At the end of the season, yes. Mid-season, no. But yeah, I think you got to hang it up if you're Aaron Rodgers. Just kind of a shell of who he was, and you know what? The power of friendship and bringing all your friends into New York is not going to help you win football games, clearly, and it's definitely not going to be enough to win your Super Bowl like this. So yeah, I think he's got to hang it up after this.
All right, so let's do it. Let's give everybody the answer to the riddle for those people who haven't gone to Google already and have figured it out themselves, right? So it's who has the most strikeouts in the postseason since 1995. Now, first of all, to get this, you have to be in the postseason for a while, right? The longevity in the postseason is what's going to give it to you. So that person probably has to have more than one postseason, or because okay, so I've already messed this up. So it's in one postseason, all right? So they have to be from start to finish, right? They have to have a lot of games in order to get those strikeout numbers. Aaron Judge is at 20. This guy is at 29. He is actually, I should have probably given this to you. Maybe this would have helped you. He is an Arizona native, by the way. No, I'll give you a few seconds. I can see the smoke rolling out.
Corey Seager?
Who?
Corey Seager? No.
The first name is almost right.
Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger. That is correct. Cody Bellinger. Very good, sir. Oh, wait. Hang on. Oh, we got a good point. Yes. Cody Bellinger, 29 strikeouts. He owns the strikeout king record for the postseason. So, yes, Cody Bellinger. All right, we are going to get into the college football ranks here, and we're going to do teams that we think are in trouble, teams that we think deserve more love. We're going to focus on the team that already is bowl eligible, that I don't know about you, but I never thought we'd be bowl eligible. It's not this quick in the season. And then we're going to talk about the big game this weekend. So here we go. Let's jump into college football checkdown. I'm going to try something here for the first time. This music plays in the background. I am going to see if I can go to our YouTube on a separate window here. I think I fixed everything where I don't have to worry about how many windows I have open now. Oh, there is our live. I can see us live on our Twitter feed at the643 Amount Pod. I can see it now. I'm going to try. Oh, hang on. I don't really want to play it. That's going to be crazy. All right. Because I had some people saying, hey, can you share that with me? And can you give that to me as you're doing it? We're going to see if we can here. I'm not real great as far as all of this good stuff. We're going to try to do it real quick. So we copied it as music kind of plays in the background. I promised people that I would try my darndest to do this to them. We're really starting to get some people going on, and I won't tell you where these people are all located, but they may be having some kind of party somewhere where they're wanting to watch the Sportz Truth all at the same time. So you'll bear with me here for just a moment as I take care of this and send it to where it needs to be sent to real fast. It might be somewhere where you can't view all the stuff online like they want you to. Well, we'll get it. We'll get it. All right. Copy and paste. Boom. All right. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully I'll know right away because I'll see all the numbers jump up, but we'll go with it. We're already got double-digit numbers right now. We haven't even started our first actual segment yet. The only thing we did was we did the opening drive. So very awesome. We appreciate you guys, and of course, as always, I'm sure that we'll see a couple of people do it before the end of the show. You can click on the comment section there up in the right-hand corner, and you can be part of our show. We'll put your name in lights right up here below well, not our ugly faces. Mitch's, I don't know, depends on who you talk to. This girl thinks it's my wife is going to stick up to me. We'll put your comments there right below, and we'll have you be part of the show. So I think these teams are in trouble, Mitch, and we'll talk about them. First of all, that first team that's in trouble, Oklahoma. Oklahoma has lost 3 straight games, and they've lost all 3 of those by 10 points or more. It's the first time since 1988. They are 210th in passing yards, and they are 219th in rushing yards. And Oklahoma is 13th currently in the SEC. What do you think about Oklahoma, and are they in trouble, buddy?
Yeah, Oklahoma's in big trouble. They cannot figure that offense out at all. They are really lost out there on offense. And honestly, if their defense wasn't pretty solid, they'd be losing these games by a lot more than they are. And like you said, 3 losses over 10 points each. It could have been a lot worse for them with how this offense plays if their defense didn't hold on as much as they do. The defense can only do so much for them, though, and that offense is just not going to get it done, especially in the SEC. They've had a really rough go of it, and honestly, I think they're just waiting for this season to end to try to rebound next year because this season is shot for them.
Yeah, so I mean, some of these teams, and this will be a nice overview question for us. I mean, shouldn't some of these teams just give up and be done? I mean, we're going to talk about them. The Utah Utes will be next. I think. So let me ask you this: if you're a fan, do you want to see them just kind of hang it up and go, okay, we know this season's done. We'll tackle this again next year, or do you still want to see them fight?
No, I think college is interesting in that aspect because you still have seniors that are done after this season, so you want to play hard for them. And a lot of these teams that we're going to talk about are still bowl eligible, or at least eligible to be bowl eligible. So it's not where they want to be. They don't want to be playing for these, guaranteed rate bowls, whatever it may be. They want to be. They want to be in the conversation of the college football playoffs, but unfortunately, it's just not going to happen this year. I think there's still something to play for and something to build off of, not only for your seniors that are done after the season, but for those guys that aren't going to hit the transfer portal, that are going to try to stay and build up Oklahoma in years to come. Those guys redshirting right now, you still want to give them some sort of belief like, hey, we can still do it. But yeah, none of these teams that we're going to talk about here are where they want to be right now.
Right. So I'm going to give you 3 teams, and I agree with you, who are in trouble. By the way, the Oklahoma Sooners only have 1 SEC win, by the way. The Utah Utes are the second one. I'm going to give you 3, and then at the end of this segment, what we're going to say is which one's in the most trouble, all right? So the Utah Utes are my second one. This team is in trouble. They are 1-4 in conference play. That's of course the Big 12, where they jumped from Pac-12 to Big 12, and they are currently ranked 12 of those 16 teams in the Big 12. Don't get me started on why there's 16 teams in the Big 12, but okay, well, we'll just laugh about it and move on. What about the Utah Utes, Mitch? Are they in trouble?
Yeah, the Utes are really in trouble. And honestly, I'll give you props. You called it weeks ago when they came down to Tucson, and they were kind of in a trap game against U of A. U of A ended up winning, and then a few weeks later, ASU beat up on them too. The Utes are not in a good spot. They've had a really tough season too, and honestly, it's they were, I forget how high they were ranked at one point this season, but they did not look bad like they do right now. They got to find their identity again and try to get back to the football they were playing early in this season, which was good enough to be ranked in the top 25 if they even want to be given a bowl at the end of this season.
All right. So my third team that I believe is in trouble, and again, we're getting some opinions from Mitch Moneybags Middlebrook. He'll show us the Moneybags here in just a moment at the end of this segment, because he's going to give us his gambling odds on all of these divisions that we're talking about. So we said Oklahoma's in trouble. We said the Utah Utes are in trouble. We're going to put a surprising team up here, and as if Oklahoma's not surprising enough, and maybe even Utah, they've been up there in the top 25 or the top 15 or so for a few of the most of the last few years. So these are not teams that are used to being in trouble, right? So again, Oklahoma, Utah, LSU, buddy, the Tigers, in my opinion, are in trouble. So right now you've got Texas A&M, you got Georgia, you got Texas, you got Tennessee, and then LSU in the SEC. They are way down the picking order. And as you know, as everybody knows that's listening to this right now, you've only got a top 12 college football team playoff. I don't think LSU can make the top 12 right at the moment where they're at. Well, let's talk about that, and let's wait till 2 weeks from now. We'll do that at the end here. You're smiling, you know what's coming, but it'll be can't wait. It'll be one of the better games on the schedule because of how the schedule is actually played out. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So let me just ask you, Mitch, LSU Tigers, are they in trouble?
Yes, they're in trouble, mostly because they had high expectations coming into this season. I think, anytime LSU starts a season, there's a lot of high hopes and high expectations. And this year is no different. They haven't lived up to those, but I also don't think they're as in trouble as the Utes and FSU that we've talked about. I think they've struggled at times this year, and in the SEC, obviously a really tough conference. They are still in trouble, and I think their playoff hopes are shot. There's no way really at this point. But I think, watching their games, at least, they don't look as bad as FSU and Utah have this season.
All right. So you got Oklahoma, you got Utah, you got LSU. I agree with you. Of these three, the team that is in the least amount of trouble is LSU, and that's because of not this week's game, but next week's game. Next week, Alabama comes to the Swamp, and they will play LSU. We will talk more about that game next week when we do our college football check down. I'm going to say probably the Utah Utes are second, and Oklahoma's done for. I don't think, as big as the Hokies are, big as a program as that is, I don't think they can make the college football playoffs this year. What do you think? Give me 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 1, 2, 3. Oklahoma's definitely in the most trouble. I mean, I think a good way to put where Oklahoma football is at right now is when you get beat and the opposing team plants a flag on a player's jersey who hasn't played there in almost 10 years.
Right.
that shows you that there's nobody else that they're worried about on that team.
Right. You haven't
They're
been relevant in 10 years, right?
exactly, and they're really, really bad on offense. I mean, what do we say? They're 210th in passing and 219th in rushing, 13th in the SEC. Only one SEC win. Nobody thought Oklahoma was going to be this bad this season, and they're just proving all the doubters right. This team has a lot of work to do if they want to be competing in the SEC next year. And honestly, I don't know if there's enough work that can be done to build off this offense the way they're playing right now.
All right. Well, let's give some teams a little love, right? So we're going to do 5 teams that we think we should be paying a little bit more attention to. These teams deserve a little more love. We're going to start with one of the teams that only has 3 letters in their name, BYU. BYU has scored 30 points in 6 straight games. Bless you, sir. I didn't hear the sneeze, but it looked like it was coming. Did you actually do it? Did you get anything on that stash, man? Make sure.
Yeah, I got a quick mute out of it because I was worried, but I think we're all right.
All right, good, good. So BYU has scored 30 points in 6 straight games. They're actually tied for first in the Big 12, and they have been the underdog against both UFC and I wrote it in my notes wrong because it says UFC and BYU. They can't be underdogs to themselves. So I can't remember the other team, but they were a big underdog too. But they haven't lost a game yet. They're really doing well, and I think BYU deserves some love. What about you, man?
Yeah, I agree. BYU has actually really impressed me. I've always had, I don't know why, but I've always kind of had a soft spot for BYU. They've actually had a really impressive season, and to be tied for first in the Big 12 right now is really impressive. Ended up beating UCF by 2 points. And actually just looking at their last few games, trying to find out who they may have been. I bet SMU
There you go. Yeah, SMU. Yeah.
SMU.
Another one of those 3-letter teams. Yeah.
Yep. And honestly, Oklahoma's probably one impressive win this year was against BYU, beat them by a score. So BYU's has a really good season, but they're holding on and they look really good. They beat the crap out of Kansas State a few weeks ago. So yeah, shout out to BYU, one that most people might not be watching, but they definitely will be sooner rather than later.
Right. Now, my next one is they've actually climbed up to number 5 in the AP Top 25. And you're like, well, if they're already at number 5, you want them to get more love? Yes. Yes, I do, because I don't think we're talking about it, to be honest. Even in a lot of the media stuff that I've seen, everything starts off with all the top 4 teams have stayed the same. Well, that means they're not talking about number 5. Number 5 is Miami. Miami is, of course, number 5. They haven't been they're ranked that high since 2017, so they're coming up out of the ashes there. They are second in all of football, all of college football. They're second in passing yards, and they are first of all the FBS teams in total yards per game. So just those 2 stats alone should get them some more love, right, Mitch?
Yeah, I agree. I think even 5 for Miami, it really snuck up on people, and I don't think many people are talking about them for being number 5. And sure, like you said, how can you say number 5 is not getting enough love? Well, they are ranked number 5, and so the polls are giving them love, but I haven't really seen much media attention given to Miami this far, and I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. But yeah, don't sleep on Miami. They're playing really good football, and they could go in and compete with anybody right now.
I'll give you another Big 12 team. Big 12 is actually, we said it in the beginning, both of us did. Big 12 is going to be big this year. Now, there are other conferences, the SEC, the Big 10, they're always big as well. But I think we got some teams in the Big 12 that are going to sneak up on some people. And one of those teams that could certainly do that is Iowa State. They are 7-0 in the Big 12. And for this one, I projected a little bit for Iowa State because they're actually favored in all of their remaining games, and they are currently tied for first in the Big 12. So if you are tied for first and you're favored in all the rest of your games, should be right there in the end, right? So let's give some love to Iowa State. Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Iowa State has really impressed me this year. Undefeated right now, and like you said, favored in the rest of their games. Honestly, no huge challenges in the rest of their games. They have Kansas State to finish the season. That's going to be a big one. And if Utah can turn it around, that'll be a bigger one as well.
It has the
But
potential to be there.
exactly,
Now,
exactly. But
is that their last game or next to last game? I'm trying to remember.
Utah is next to last, and then Kansas State to finish the regular season. So a little time to get healthy and ramp up before those last two challenges for the season. But Iowa State's in a really good spot right now, ranked 11. Could easily break the top 10 if they keep scoring and piling on teams like they have been.
Yeah, there are some teams in the top 10 that if they lose, they're certainly going to fall out, and that gives Iowa State the ability to sneak up there into the top 10. Kind of like we were talking about Miami has snuck up into the top 5. Uh, Iowa State sneaking into the top 10.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, our buddy Cowboy Reggie there, who writes for us at www.welikesportsdc.com. Him and his son are getting ready to do their podcast. I probably shouldn't plug it this early in the show, but they're doing a Dallas Cowboy podcast. It'll start here at the top of the hour. But stick with us. We're better than they are. So when you're done here, if you still want to get some more sports and you're a big Dallas Cowboy guy or gal, then hop on over there to them. I'll wait to tell you the name of it later. Okay. So Notre Dame, he is a big Notre Dame, big Dallas Cowboy guy. Let me give you some Notre Dame stuff, and then we'll give them some love here as well. Notre Dame is 7-1 with a 6-game winning streak. They beat Navy 51-14, and they forced 6 turnovers in that game. I don't care who you're playing. You beat somebody 51-14, and you cause them to turn the ball over 6 times. You're doing something right. So Army is their only ranked team in the rest of their schedule, and of course, because they're Notre Dame and they don't belong to a conference, they won't have the stress of playing a conference game like all the rest of the teams that we're talking about that need some love. So, Mitch, throw some love Notre Dame's way, and maybe change that 4-leaf clover to red for a second with all the love we're throwing.
Yeah, Notre Dame has had a really, really good season. And honestly, I think most people, when they hear, well, they beat up on Navy, that might not mean too much to them. Navy's had a really good season this far, too. They just cracked the top 25 before last week and the beatdown that Notre Dame gave them. And I think the biggest thing, outside of the box score, just looking at the final score, 51-14, you really got to think, well, about those 6 turnovers that they forced, because that's a huge piece of this game and why that score was so lopsided. So yeah, Notre Dame playing really well on both sides of the ball.
Right. All right, our last one. They are 8-0. They are in command of the Big Ten right at the moment, and they are Indiana. Indiana, 8-0, 1 win shy of their football franchise win record in a season. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? So with this many games left, they only have to win 1 more to tie it and 2 more to get the most victories ever for them in a football season. And their next 3 opponents, Mitch, this is where I want to talk to you about it. But here are their next 3, right? The Michigan State Spartans, the Michigan Wolverines, and then they are at Ohio State. So Indiana truly deserves some love, and they're also going to control their own fate and destiny. So let's talk about them and their fate and their destiny, and how much love should we be throwing Indiana's way, man?
Yeah, agreed. They are going to control their own fate. And honestly, the way Michigan State has played this year, it looks like they are gonna tie and probably break that record if they can string 2 good weeks together here against the 2 Michigan teams. Michigan has had its struggles this season too, and who knows what you're going to get when you play them right now. So we could easily be talking about a record-breaking season for Indiana. And honestly, a bigger conversation might have to be: are we switching from Indiana as a basketball school to are they going to be a football and basketball school? Because they've had a really good season and can't be looked over anymore in the Big Ten like they used to be.
And they're one of those teams that has taken advantage of the transfer portal. If you look at their roster, they've taken advantage of it. Well, I'm not going to go through and name a bunch of the players that have come over and stuff like that, but they are one of these, we'll call them a mid-level school, who have put themselves in the upper echelon of their conference simply by going out and doing some heavy recruiting and letting that transfer portal work for them. So you're right, Michigan State, Michigan, and I mean, if we can do, we'll talk about the big game this weekend here in a moment. But man, Indiana, Indiana could be setting themselves up for a big time clash with Ohio State in 3 weeks. Myself, we're going to have some. We're going to have one really good game this weekend. Next weekend, we're going to have another great game in Alabama going to LSU. It's going to have some big time playoff implications for that game. And then after that, if all the cards and stuff fall right, you're going to have Indiana at Ohio State. So some really great college football for the next 3 weeks at least. So let's look at another team. I can't believe they're bowl eligible already. But we're also going to say that they are one extreme to the other extreme. Let me explain. So the bowl eligible team already with their 6th win, Colorado. Deion Sanders at the helm. Even though he looks like Moses with that beard, he is at the helm of Colorado, and he's got them to a 6-win season already. They are already bowl eligible. All right, so let's give them a little love. But somebody's going to figure them out. Somebody's going to stomp on them. Here's why: they are one extreme to the other, right? In any kind of sport, you can't be really, really good at one part of your sport and then be terrible at the other part and not expect some other team eventually to exploit that. Colorado's going to get exploited. We'll find out when it is and who does it to them. And this is why they're 11th passing in FBS, but they are 265th in rushing. And by the way, that's low in Oklahoma. So they can't rush the ball for nothing, but they can pass it for everything. Somebody will eventually, I think, exploit that and will take Colorado down. So what do you think about Colorado already being bowl eligible, and what do you think about the fact that they're kind of polar opposite with their rushing and their passing attack?
Yeah, I agree. They are complete opposites, and exactly like you said, somebody's going to figure it out. You take away that passing game, and they can't do anything. Honestly, it's really their offensive line that leads to this disparity, and it's you could say, well, the offensive line pass blocks and rush blocks, but their rush blocking is just absolutely horrendous. They can't do anything on the ground right now. Can barely leave enough time for Shedeur to be back there and get rid of the ball. Still taking way too many sacks. So that offensive line is really the key to this team. And if they can figure it out and play well the rest of the season, they're going to remain ranked. And I don't know how high they can get, but they are, I think, in every game, you see both of those two extremes of a really good football team and a pretty bad one at the same time. That defense has a lot of holes too, but I agree with you. I don't think either of us thought Colorado would be where they are right now this quickly in the season, bowl eligible already, and just cracking the top 25 here. But honestly, with Travis Hunter out there, a top Heisman candidate right now, it makes sense. He plays both sides of the ball and he does them both really well. It's just whether or not they can keep this up. I think, Travis Hunter staying healthy is a huge part of that, but also giving Shedeur some time and figuring out a way to rush the ball, not just on broken plays, is really going to be huge for him too.
Yeah, they're going to have to improve. They've done a great job, and I don't want to take anything away from them, but they're going to have to be better in order to crack. They've already gotten to the top 25. I believe they're at number 23 this week, but if they really want to get much higher, they're going to have to improve on some of those areas that we just talked about. And I'm going to make this prediction. I don't care how high they can get in the top 15. But as soon as they lose, they're going to drop out of the top 25. That'll be I don't care how high they get. As soon as they lose, they're going to be done, and everybody's going to write them off. So we'll see how all that plays out. So I'm going to give you a pick here in a moment. Mitch is going to give you his picks on all of the bigger divisions in college football. But first, we're going to answer and complete this statement. We're going to put it up here on the screen for everybody to see. Complete this statement. I've got three choices for you, Mitch. If Ohio State loses at Penn State, which one of these three is going to happen? And you would complete the statement with it. Would it be if Ohio State loses to Penn State, they fall out of the top 10? If Ohio State loses to Penn State, they will still be above Alabama in the rankings? Or if Ohio State loses to Penn State, they miss the Big Ten title game? Which one of those three would you put and complete the sentence with? I'll give it to you again. They fall out of the top 10. They will still be ahead of Alabama, or they will miss the Big Ten title game. Which one, buddy?
I think they're still going to get Alabama. I think, as long as they don't get absolutely embarrassed and destroyed out there by Penn State, they're still going to be ranked above Alabama. It really depends on how the game goes. If they fall outside of the top 10, again, unless they get blown out, I don't think they're going to fall outside of the top 10 either. But I think even if, it is a little lopsided, they're not going to fall too far knowing that they're playing Penn State, who's ranked number 3 right now. So I think the safest bet is that they're going to be above Alabama still. And they might end up, depending on how bad of a loss it could be, somewhere 10 or 11, but still above Alabama.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that that's wrong. In fact, I would probably tell you that I agree with you. That's right. I mean, I think that all three of these could actually happen, to be honest with you. I think that's kind of why I did it this way, that if they do lose, they could fall out of the top 5, that they'll still be ranked above Alabama unless, as you said, they get absolutely embarrassed, which I don't see happening. And if they do lose, they could miss the Big Ten title game. So I could see all of those happening, buddy. So I'm cheating a little bit here. I jumped on it real fast to look. So give us an update. Top of the 5th in New York, right? That's where I had to think about which one are they in. They in LA or New York? No, they're in New York, buddy.
Yeah.
So give us an update on the baseball game.
Yeah, it's tightening up. 5-4, going to the bottom of the 5th now. Dodgers are crawling their way back, really trying to sweep it here in New York and not let this go to Game 5. They're, playing like the Dodgers do, and if the Yankees can't put more runs on this board, they're in danger of being swept because that bullpen is really getting beat around right now. So they got to do something and put some more points on the board if they want to force a Game 5 here.
Right. All right. Let me give you something. I didn't give anybody this last week. I feel really strong about this pick this week. So I'm going to give you just a pick 'em. I don't do the spread. I don't do all the other stuff. I just pick, right? This week, I'm telling everybody, this team beats another team that they're not supposed to every single year. And I think this is the week that they're going to do it this season. I'm going to pick Louisville over Clemson. So, in my opinion, write that thing down, circle it, highlight it, do what you need to do. And then after you win, give me some love on Twitter. But you can do that at D643NOutPod. That is our main account. Mitch, where can they find you at on Twitter, buddy?
Yeah, you can find me at MitchellBrook52. And if you take any of these conference winners that we're going to talk about here, you can feel free to give me some love too. But don't get them mixed up. I can't take any credit for Louisville over Clemson. That's all the Cleek Geek Mike Valentine over there. So give him the love there. But I'll give you some odds on the big conferences in college football and where Vegas has these winners at.
Okay.
So we'll start with the SEC, the famed SEC that everybody wants to know about. Vegas right now is torn between Georgia and Texas to win the SEC this season. Both favored at plus 200 to win the SEC. Plus signs here to win conferences means that nobody's running away with these things. And I think that speaks to the transfer portal and the state of college football right now. So favored right now for the SEC, Georgia and Texas tied at first, and then we got Texas A&M sneaking up in third at plus 380. And then actually, surprisingly enough, we have LSU in fourth there at plus 800. Alabama fifth here at plus 2,500 to win the SEC. That might have some good odds for you because they're not. Tennessee is fourth here at plus 950. But that Alabama at plus 2,500 and fifth is, I think, your best odds to win it there and still get a good payout.
Do you think Alabama can really do it?
You know, they need a lot of help. They need help from a lot of teams, but I still think that win over Georgia helps them in the end. You know, their game against LSU coming up could really help them there too. So it's, you know, I don't love their chances of winning the SEC, but I still think they have a chance. So you never know.
All right. So I just want to point out a few things here to you as the guy who's trying to be the optimist here. You've got two more ranked or top 25 teams that we haven't even talked about that are also in the SEC, in the Missouri Tigers and the Ole Miss Rebels. Missouri is ranked number 25 currently. Ole Miss is 19. And then the Texas A&M Aggies, who you seem kind of surprised were at number 3, they're the only team in this division that doesn't have a loss in the SEC yet. They're 5-0.
Yeah. Honestly, I will say their play in the SEC this season, I think, is why they're third here. Ole Miss is right behind Alabama at plus 3,500, and then Arkansas is actually more of a favorite than Missouri is. Arkansas at plus 18,000 and Missouri at plus 25,000. So, I mean, if you're a real believer in Missouri, that's really good odds at plus 25,000. Not sure how good a shot it is, but hey, you never know.
All right, so we're going to do 4 of these. You know, we're not going to do the Mid-American or the Mountain West or any of those type conferences. Which one you want to go to next, Mitch?
Let's go hard conference here. We'll do Big Ten next. Currently, Oregon favored to win the Big Ten at plus 105, followed by Ohio State at plus 160. Ohio State currently ranked behind Penn State, who is third favorite to win at plus 400. And then Indiana, who we were giving some love to, in fourth there. Then a big drop off. Indiana is at plus 1,100 right now. And then a big drop off to Wisconsin and Iowa at plus 25,000 to win the Big Ten. So probably the biggest disparity in the top 3 teams or top 4 teams to win the conference in this one, at least the ones we're going to talk about. But honestly, I think any of those, Oregon, Ohio State, or Penn State, I think have equally as good of a chance to win the Big Ten this year. So that's really a toss-up in my opinion.
And you may want to take advantage of the Penn State line or the Ohio State line, because whichever one of those 2 teams wins this weekend, I'm sure they're really going to jump up, and then those odds are going to be not so great. But I agree with you. I don't think anybody is going to pick anybody beyond Illinois, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'd kind of stay away from the Big Ten, to be honest. There's a lot of powerhouses right there, and Big Ten football is let's just run it down your throat. So.
Yep.
I don't know. I'd kind of stay away from that. If it was me, I would kind of stay away. But I appreciate you giving us the odds and telling us what Vegas thinks. Are you going to say I would drop my money on this Big Ten team?
Honestly, I agree with you. I'd kind of stay away from Big Ten. Honestly, with the way they shake out right now, I'd put my money on Penn State just because it's plus 400, and I really do give all three of these teams a really good chance. Um, I'd I'd stay away from Oregon. I think I still give them a really good chance to win the Big Ten. But at plus 105, there's really no value there. I mean, you're basically getting your money back. So there's really nothing of value there. I'd probably stay away from betting on the Big Ten. But if you feel really strongly, especially about Penn State or Indiana, there is still some money to be made there.
All right, we've done the SEC, we've done the Big Ten. We're also going to do the Big 12 and the ACC. Which one of those two do you want to go to next, sir?
We'll keep it rolling with the bigs. We'll do Big 12 here because I actually think ACC, in my opinion, is kind of the one we probably have the most clear winner in. But Big 12, here we have Iowa State leading the pack at plus 165. Then we got BYU, who we were giving some love to, pretty close behind at plus 250. And then even closer behind, Kansas State at plus 270. Rounding out the top three, and then Colorado sneaking up there plus 600. Honestly, out of these teams, I'm taking BYU. BYU at plus 250. They're kind of right in that in between of still making some money and still really good upside. It's hard to bet against Iowa State right now being undefeated, but at only plus 165, I don't really like those odds. I don't like that payout for what you got to put down there. So I'd go BYU. You still get a decent payout. And they're playing just as good a football right now. So
I know we said earlier that Big Ten is kind of our conference. I am a huge Ohio State guy, but we both live here in Arizona, so I've got to ask you. I mean, Arizona State ASU is 5-2 as far as an overall record, and 2-2 in the conference. They're about halfway down the list there in the Big 12/16. What's the money line on ASU if I want to do that?
yeah, they're plus 8,000. They need some help too. They got Cincinnati, TCU, and Texas Tech above them still. But ASU at plus 8,000, they are a really fun team. And it just seems like they're riding a wave right now that's really hard to stop. I know they lost last weekend, but still a really good team. And at plus 8,000, those are really good odds. So not something to overlook. Just to toss it on right now, we got Utah, UCF, Kansas, and Houston, as well as U of A, all at plus 50,000. So Vegas isn't giving them any chances. Arizona's down at the bottom there. But ASU still has a little bit of a chance there. You could.
Maybe. Okay, so let's move on to our last one here. It's the ACC. Tell us about that.
Yeah, ACC, I think, in my opinion, this is probably the easiest one to pick. It's Miami in first at plus 110. You got Clemson hanging around at plus 130, but I'm kind of putting a fork in Clemson. I'm out on the Debo train. I cashed my ticket and I'm off that. And then SMU at plus 650 there to round out the top three. I think Miami's going to win the ACC, and I think they'll do it pretty handily. Unless Clemson really starts to impress me, I just don't put them on the same level as Miami right now, and I think this is their conference to lose.
Yeah, if I remember right. So let's take this for a second. So the ACC, you got the top four teams are all ranked in the top 25. You got Miami, of course, as you mentioned, at number 5. I'm looking at another website that gives me everybody in that Atlantic Coastal Conference, which is what ACC stands for. You got Pitt at number 18. You got SMU at 20, and then you have Clemson at 11. So they've got 4 ranked teams. I almost put Pittsburgh in there. They need to get some more love, and if I remember correctly, I'll click out of this for a second and go into another screen here. I think they've got a pretty big game this weekend, if I remember right. I was looking at a bunch of stuff earlier. I've looked at so much stuff over the last 24 hours, all these notes that I'm making and everything else. And if you find it before I do, just shout it out at me, because because I'm not looking at our screen. I'm looking at the games here. Yeah, Pittsburgh and okay, so Pittsburgh and SMU play each other this weekend. So yeah, that should be a pretty good game, and that's going to kind of decide who's going to be the second ranked in the ACC there. So because again, I really do. I think Louisville will beat Clemson, and then of course you're going to one of those two teams, Pitt or SMU, has to lose. So then it's going to be Miami's division to win. So what's the odds for Miami winning? Should I lay money down on Miami?
I still wouldn't. I think they're plus 110, and you never know what's going to happen. I don't think it's a good gambling line, but I do think they are going to be the winners. So I think it's tough. This and the Big Ten I'd probably stay away from just because there's no great value. Even though I think this one's a lot more clear that I think it is Miami's conference to lose.
Okay. So you've got man, almost an hour on college football this week between gambling and everything else. So we dove into that. I really love college football. I know Mitch. I'm trying to get Mitch on board a little bit. Mitch is more of a basketball guy than what I am. So we're kind of battling each other on the seesaw here, back and forth. I don't have anything on the NBA, but I will say last week somebody said hop on the Kevin Durant train and put him in for MVP. He had a pretty good week this week. So did the Phoenix Suns. I know they lost one game to the Lakers, but they had a pretty good week overall this week. So maybe you should jump on that train as well. All right, let's go to our 4 down territory, which is going to be our NFL talk. Here we go, buddy. Let's climb aboard that one. Shoot, that wasn't what was supposed to happen. Hold on. Oh, this old guy and this music sometimes. I'll tell you what. There we go. All right, so 4 down territory. We've got 4 big questions here. We're going to talk about Lamar Jackson. We're going to talk about Josh. You can tell me how to pronounce his last name from New England. We're also going to talk about Nathan Shepard and his ordeal with a certain quarterback this week. And then I can't wait to get to the last part of this discussion. I think it'll be fantastic as we dive into what Nick Bosa did on Sunday night football. All right, buddy. So here we go. We got it all in. Let's start with Lamar. I labeled this one on our notes, the frustrations of Lamar Jackson, right? So fourth quarter, 3rd and 14, he throws the ball to Bateman, his receiver, and he drops it. And then the final play of the game, he chucks it into the end zone. To be honest, it wasn't even close to a receiver. I'd be embarrassed if the Cleveland Browns beat me too, but I wouldn't take my hat off and throw it across the field and throw a temper tantrum like Lamar did. So do you like how he acted? Do you think it shows that he cares? Or do you think that he should do it behind closed doors? Do you think he was acting like a child? Or can you just point at this stuff like what I'm kind of thinking and say, look, Lamar, you're not perfect either. You make mistakes too. I'm going to grab a drink here real quick, and I'm going to let you talk about Lamar Jackson and his temper tantrums over the weekend.
Yeah, honestly, I feel the above. I think, I don't have a problem with guys showing frustration in their emotions, especially after a tough loss like that when they really had that game under control and it just got away from them late. Could have had a game-sealing interception that fell through the hands, and a very winnable game. You can say, well, if Bateman catches that pass, it's completely different. You could say, it's not all on Lamar, but that, like you said, that last pass as time expired didn't give anybody a chance. And as we saw this week in the Commanders-Bears game, all you got to do is give them a chance. You never know what's going to happen as time expires, and you can end up pulling out a win through the skin of your teeth. So it really doesn't matter. When all is said and done, but I don't think you can show that frustration, or you want to show that frustration anywhere outside of closed doors. You want to keep that in-house, and I think it does a lot more if it is behind closed doors. Showing your teammates that frustration And you know, kind of motivating them like, oh man, I don't want to let this guy down again. I don't want to see him this upset. And sure, everybody's to blame there. There's a piece of the blame for everybody on the Ravens, but a large piece of that goes to the quarterback. And if Lamar isn't getting it done, he's going to shoulder a lot of that frustration, a lot of that blame, probably at times more than he should. So I got no problem showing that frustration, being frustrated with your own play. But you don't want to make it seem like, oh, well, he's a crybaby, and no one knows where that frustration is truly lying. So you want to do that as much behind closed doors as you can.
And I get the emotion is right there. You know, we're and you know in this age of social media, we see everything right now. Um, you know, I say it all the time. Everybody wants a homemade meal out of the microwave, and that just doesn't happen, right? We want instant, but we want it to be great. We want it to be gratifying, and all of that. So you know, the cameras point to Lamar. He throws his helmet. He acts like a child on the sidelines, and even on the field at the last play of the game, he did the same thing. I don't know. It's just not a good look for me. Excuse me. I wouldn't necessarily punish him, but I would pull him off to the side and be like, "Hey, you know, you're still on the Ravens. You know, you still got a good team. You're still in a good spot. Uh, you got beat by a guy in Jameis Winston who almost willed himself and his team over top of you. Take it as a lesson learned, and let's move on with our lives, right?"
Yeah, and I think you especially have to have that conversation now when Lamar, you're not a rookie anymore. You're a
Correct.
leader of this team. You've been in the NFL for 6 seasons now. I mean, you can't keep acting like a kid. You got to be a leader of men, because the second these men see you acting like a baby, they instantly lose respect for you, whether they believe in your talent, whether they think you can lead them to a Super Bowl. There's still some respect that's going to be lost when you can't control your emotions at least a little bit. And I think that's kind of where the conversation leads is, hey man, I get being frustrated. I get not, you know, being happy with the outcome, and whether it's with yourself or with the rest of the team. But there's no more. We can't give Lamar any more breaks. He's been here before. He's been in the league now for way too long to be still talking about Lamar doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to spend too much time on him because I don't want to give the baby too much attention. You know, but and you know, my Bengals are I'll talk about them for the time being. Can we just move past them? I almost brought a special guest on with me who with us this week. I will bring him on eventually, but I just couldn't handle it this week. I couldn't talk about the Bengals and that frustrating loss over the Eagles. I mean, I watched that game twice actually. Um, from the first half, I thought we had that thing under wraps, and then all of a sudden, it just collapsed on us. So, but you didn't see. Now, you know, I don't know if you saw much of that game. Joe Burrow did go crazy once when the ref was standing there and wouldn't let him go out. You know, wouldn't let him do the play because they were ready to go and he thought he had him. But if you look off to his left, which he didn't see it, there was a lineman coming. There was a lineman coming off. So they did the right thing. Joe just didn't see it and he got a little frustrated with it. But it's not like he threw his helmet or anything stupid. He was just kind of animated. So there is a difference. Second, how do you say this guy's name? Josh is so it's spelled Uche. I don't want to butcher his name. Do you know? Oh, you're shaking your head. You're not sure
Your
to say
your guess is as good as mine. I have no clue. I'd say Yush. But I really don't know.
All right. So we're gonna say Josh U. So so the Patriots trading up Josh U is another way that I think. Here we go. Conspiracy theory guy is going to come out here for a moment. I'd love to get your take on this. You're already smiling. So I think it's another way that the NFL is rigged toward Taylor's team. And if you don't know who Taylor's team is, you haven't been watching the show. So I don't understand what the decision was. Right. So was it a business decision? I don't think it was because they only received a 6th round pick for him. Right. this is where my conspiracy theory part kicks in, right? I don't think it was a financial decision. He had a 1 year, $3 million contract. That's nothing to an NFL team. It could have been a financial decision. It wasn't a culture decision. I mean, he's not Hassan Reddick, and he didn't turn more. And in fact, he actually turned down more money to stay and play in New England. Maybe it was a performance decision because in 2022 he had 11 and a half sacks in 15 games, and this season he only has 3. But I don't get why New England would make this trade, not for a 6th-round pick, not for a guy who's only making $3 million, and he just so happens to go to Taylor's team and strengthen that team. I don't know. Am I off my rocker here? Should I turn my conspiracy theory light off, Mitch, or should I let that puppy shine and maybe we should spin that baby around a few times? What do you think?
Yeah, I think let it ride. I don't understand this move from the Patriots at all, honestly. For all the reasons you said, I don't understand it. It can't be the culture. It can't be the money. It can't be that you think you're going to get more production out of a 6th-round pick. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Sure, you see some fairy tale stories about guys getting drafted that late in the 6th, 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant guys. But those are 1 in a million. Those are not, you're not relying on those guys to be leaders on your team. And to have the upside of, like you said, 11 and a half sacks in 15 games in 2022, just 2 seasons ago, to give up on a guy because he's down on production this year, he's still only making $3 million. And the Patriots need bright spots like this guy. To give him up for next to nothing doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't know. I think it's more so a picture into how poorly the Patriots are ran right now than anything. But it's just a really head-scratching move. I really don't understand.
Yeah, it makes me think that it really does. It makes me think that the NFL kind of said, "Hey, if you do this for Taylor's team, then we'll give you some concessions later on. We'll just kind of sweep it under the rug." So I'm going to tell you what, I'm really going to beat this drum if something happens like in the draft or something like that, where it looks like the NFL is completely, totally rigged. So stay tuned. We'll see what this produces. Nathan Shepard grabbed the ankle of Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert and used the technique that they call the gator roll. And Bradley Bosman, who hammered him to get him off of Herbert, drew a flag. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm sure you've seen this video. So I have 2 questions for you. And the first one is, what should the NFL do with Nathan Shepard?
I think you got to fine him. I think that's a really, really bad look and honestly classless. I really liked the offensive lineman coming to Justin Herbert's defense there and really laying into the guy. I think that's what you need out of your offensive line. That just lights a fire under those guys, and it's really cool to see. I think you got to find the guy that's intentionally trying to injure somebody, and you just can't have that. I mean, it's one thing. This game is plagued with injuries and full of injuries at every turn, unintentional. The last thing that you can be doing in this league is trying to intentionally injure somebody. It's just a really classless look from Nathan Shepard there.
So you're just going to go with fining? You're not going to go with anything else?
I think it happens more than we think it does or that we see it happen. So I'm not sure you can suspend the guy. Maybe it sends a message if you do suspend him a game to everybody else, like, hey, if we catch you doing this, you're gonna miss out on some money and you're gonna miss a game. But I think it happens more often than we think or that we see. So I really don't know if you can suspend him when it probably happened a dozen more times this week that we just didn't see or get as clear of a shot of.
I don't know. I think you have to. Me, I'm suspending him, and I'm probably suspending him for more than 1 game. I was looking at 3 games is where I would be. I think you need to send a clear message. I think you need to send the message that we are protecting our players. Um, I've not necessarily always been the proponent for how much they put pillows back there, basically in the backfield, and allow the quarterbacks to fall on them. I mean, I don't. If you've got a 300-pound lineman and he takes 1 or 2 steps after the football's released and he's coming full force and he hits the quarterback and you want to throw the flag, I'm not a big proponent of that. I mean, how do you expect that guy to stop on a dime, right? But this particular one, he had already thrown the ball. Um, Now, I guess maybe from where the guy was positioned on the ground, maybe he didn't see it. So I would, I'd like to get, and this is part of it that we can't get because we're never going to get to talk to Nathan, and we're not going to get to talk to Bradley, either one, or Justin, or any of the people involved in this. We just don't have that kind of clout. Like I know we're having a pretty good run here, but we don't have that kind of clout yet. So I don't know. I would say at least 1 game, probably a maximum of 3 games for me. But you're not going to suspend him at all.
I mean, I think I like where your head's at. I like, that kind of thinking. And I think like this is where we need to be protecting players, not so much what they've been doing. And, oh, you can't put your body weight down on the guy. You got to make sure he lands softly. You got to pull up a little bit before you hit him because you might hit him a little too hard. I don't like that. I do like protecting players like this when it's illegal and just intentionally injuring somebody. So I wouldn't be upset if I saw him get suspended. I'm not sure how long I would say. I think 2 games. I'll meet in the middle and say 2 games. I think I wouldn't say is unfair.
Okay.
I think a fine to start at the very least.
Okay. All right. And I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but I'll ask you the second question here, which is, should Bradley Bosman get anything else from the NFL? He already got the flag. He already got, he cost his team some yards and stuff like that. But he was taking up for his guy, right? Should the NFL do anything to him?
No, nothing. Sticking up for his quarterback and honestly stopping anything further from happening because that's a really dangerous play and just a really dirty move. So, no, I like him sticking up for his quarterback and honestly, he probably could have done worse to the guy laying on the ground. So, I don't think they need to do anything more to him. He's just sticking up for his guys.
Okay. All right. And I agree with that. I don't know. It looked like he was almost throwing punches at him when he kind of landed on him, which I'm not sure if we want to display that necessarily. But he was upset, man. He was, I have siblings. I know you have siblings. If somebody's coming after, our brother, sister, mother, father, whatever it is, yeah, I'm going to see red pretty much right away. And yeah, I may throw some punches on the football field.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to take up for my family member, and then in a football realm, I'm sure that's how they all consider each other. Their family, right? They spend so much time together, especially during the season. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think you should get anything else either. Here is our 4th down of 4-down territory, the last one. Man, I've been looking forward to this all day. I saw this, and I'm like, okay, we're going to get into this one. Because it not only does the sports stuff, it crosses into the political realm, and then I'm going to throw a curveball at you at the end, and I'm going to throw a curveball at all of our listeners here who are listening to us live on either X or on YouTube. Of course, it's at the 643 and out pod on X. Mitch, where can they find us at on YouTube, buddy?
Yep, same thing. You'll find us at the 643 and out pod on YouTube. You can like, subscribe, comment. You'll find our whole show in its entirety there. Right when we're done, you can even follow along live if YouTube is more your speed than X is.
Right, and then we have a tape delay. So if you're a Facebook person or whatever, you got family that you think, oh man, they'd really like this show. So I'm going to turn them over to it, but all they got is Facebook. That's okay. Go to our Facebook page at the 643 and out. Easy for me to say. We came up with it. I can't even say it. So Yeah, go over that on Facebook as well. I'll get you the exact address here in just a second. And you can see us on the tape delay. As soon as we're done here, I will upload it to Facebook, and you'll be able to see the YouTube feed on our Facebook page. So that's how we do that as well. Here we go, buddy. I've been waiting all day for this one. I hope we can banter back and forth on this, and I will tell you right away, no hard feelings. I still love you no matter where this goes. Okay. So after the Sunday night football game, Melissa Stark was interviewing three of the 49ers players. Nick Bosa pops up in between them all briefly, shows up wearing a white hat with gold lettering. And on that white hat, in those gold letters, it says, "Make America Great Again." I was watching it live. I saw it right away. I said to myself, I personally liked it, and I'm like, oh, he's going to get in trouble for this, right? Those are the first two things that popped into my head, right? So I want to read you what Rule 5, Article 4, Section 8. Like, what? There's all that stuff to the NFL rule book? Yes, yes, as far as players go, Rule 5, Article 4, Section 8. I will read it to you verbatim right out of the rule book itself. Throughout the period on game day that a player is visible to the stadium and television audience, including in pregame warmups, in the bench area, and during postgame interviews in the locker room or on the field, players are prohibited from wearing, displaying, or otherwise conveying personal messages, either in writing or in illustration, unless such message has been approved in advance by the league office. The league will not grant permission for any club or player to wear, display, or otherwise convey messages through helmet decals, armbands, jersey patches, mouthpieces, or other items affixed to game uniforms or their equipment, which relate to political activities or causes, other non-football events, causes, or campaigns, or even charitable causes or campaigns. Boy, they really, man, that is they're spelling that baby out there. They're not leaving any gray area in that bad boy at all. And I think we can all pretty much say Nick Bosa blew that rule up. So, my question to you is, should the NFL punish Nick Bosa or not? That's our first thing, and we're really going to get into a couple of follow-up questions here, buddy. So let's take the first one. Should they punish him?
Well, I think you have to, and it's exactly because of the rule you just laid out so clearly. I mean, there's, like you said, there's no gray area in it. I mean, he broke the rule in its entirety. There's no way around it. You can't say, well, he did this, that. No, he straight up broke what the rule exactly says. No political messaging when you're in view of anyone in the stadium or anyone on television. So completely went against the rule. I think you have to find him. I think the 49ers can't do anything to stop him from going and grab a hat that he probably hid during the game and then running back out there and showing it to everybody on television. So I don't think you do anything to the 49ers, but I do think you have to find Nick Bosa for blatantly breaking a rule that I'm sure he's aware of.
Oh, I'm sure. I was aware of it. I wasn't aware that it went through that length. As I looked it up and I was like, okay, what is the actual rule? Are there any loopholes in this rule? No, no, there are no. Some lawyer took a long time to sit behind a desk and draft that puppy up.
Not even for charity, there's not a loophole.
Right?
There's no way you're going to get around it when it's that political either.
Yeah, absolutely. So my follow-up to this one, and this is only the second of four questions. Just wait, ladies and gentlemen. Wait till the fourth question. I gave him some time. He's seen the notes. He knows it's coming. Just wait. I can't wait to get into this. So I also want to get into this question. Do you think it's right for the NFL to silence their players?
This one I've gone back and forth on a lot, honestly, because, I don't know if I would use the term silence, because they're not saying, you can't talk about any of this on your own time. You can't have these beliefs. You can't go out there on social media and post your beliefs and wear stuff like this for your charity or political affiliation, whatever it is. They're just saying, hey, when you're on our time, you're at your job. You're not going to be portraying any of this stuff that could be seen as divisive or whatever it may be. When you're on our time, essentially in your place of work. I don't think there's any problem with that. We all have rules and obligations like that to our places of work. There's no difference in that sense to me in the NFL. So controlling what they can on their time, I don't see a problem with.
All right. So what about Taylor's boyfriend telling everybody that they should get vaccinated on all the commercials that he was on for those so many weeks and everything? What's the difference?
I think that's a gray area where it's been politicized now, but I don't think, you know, advertisements in that sense are inherently political. I think it's no different to me. I don't see these healthcare companies, especially Pfizer and those big guys, any differently than I see a gambling site. I mean, they're all out there to make money. Sure, you could say that these health organizations are helping people and keeping people alive, but health organizations, in my opinion, are not out there to solely keep people alive, or even primarily that's their goal. They're out there to make money.
Okay. I didn't. You caught me off guard here a little bit. There's a if I'll post it up to our account right now actually. Um, so in the game between LA and New York in the first inning, there was one out in the first inning. Like I said, I just reposted it up to our at the 643 and out pod. Mookie Betts goes into the side wall, and there's a Yankee fan who grabs a hold of his glove. I mean, literally with both hands, grabs a hold of the glove, reaches into the glove, and tries to get the baseball out of his glove. That's absolutely insane. And I made the mistake real quick of clicking over on Twitter like I do a lot when you're talking, and I'm like, okay, let's see if I can get some kind of breaking news. And then I had to watch that video. It's like, what in the world? So go to our site at the 643 and out pod if you haven't seen it yet. When you see it the first time without being in slow motion, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Now watch it in slow motion and see what the fan really tries to do. He could have hurt Mookie Betts. I mean, he literally. Have you seen it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just now saw it. That's crazy. So, is the NFL in a no-win situation? Because if they do something to Nick Bosa, the other side, again, we dove into the political realm here, right? There's always right and wrong, good and bad. There's never an in-between in this kind of stuff, right? So if the NFL finds Nick Bosa for this, and the other political side is going to be like, oh, that's unfair, and you're just doing that because he supports us. And is the NFL in a no-win situation here?
I don't think so. I think he brought politics into it. It's against their rules. You got to fine him. You got to show that we're not just going to allow you to break our rules and do nothing about it. And I think no matter what, you're going to get some backlash, but the rules are the rules. And if you break the rules, you got to pay the consequences. You can't set the precedence that, well, we're worried about the backlash, so we're not going to actually enforce the rules, because that sets a really bad precedent.
All right. While we're doing this, I'm going to throw in this stat here, OptaStats at OPTASTATS. We follow them on Twitter. You should as well. I'll give them a free plug there because they have a lot of neat stuff. Yesterday, New York City was the first metro area to ever lose a game on the same day in Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, NBA, and NFL. They lost that all in the same day on Sunday. Crazy, but they did it. So are they in a no-win situation? Right? Let's concentrate on that for a minute. I think they kind of are in a no-win situation. It's almost better, I think, if they just ignore it and they pull both off the side and they're like, hey, buddy, if you ever do that again, this is what's going to happen to you. because no matter what they do, it's going to be half the country. I mean, we are so divided right now. It's like race. It's like religion. You know, and this year in a political election year, there are a lot of us divided. I've seen a lot of our fans who watch this show because we follow them on X and everything else, and they post up stuff. And please, I don't want to get into a political rant and rave because that's not what this show is. I will tell you, and I'm sure Mitch agrees with me. We want you to go out and vote, right? Uh, Whatever your opinion is, go out and express it. Go vote. I've already done it. I don't know if Mitch has done it already or not. I always do the ballot every year because of the job that I have. I never know if I'm really going to be free or not because there could be some things that happen, and I don't want that to get in the way of myself voting. So I've already mailed in the ballot. I've already taken care of all of that. That's the big thing that I want to tell everybody here today is vote. Uh, Let your voice be heard. But I don't want to get into some political thing, whether I like this person for this position or I like that person for this position. That's not what this podcast is. So, yeah, they're in a no-win situation, in my opinion. It's going to get turned around, and it's going to they may get more backlash from what they do as opposed to what they don't do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. What do they do? They want it to stay quiet. They don't want to make this a big scene and draw more eyes to what happened. But I think you're right. They have to deter people from doing it in the future. So whether or not they make a statement and make it clear to everybody that this is unacceptable and hey, we'll let Bosa fly this once, but if he does it again, it's going to be a lot worse than it would have been this time. I think that can still be a deterrent to people, but it's yeah, they are in a really tough spot here.
Yeah, I agree. I had to do a couple things with some of the equipment on the side of me here. So, you see me reach across, and it's like, wow, that's ugly. That big old fat arm going across there. What's he doing that for? That's why. So, last thing, here we go. I want to get into this for a second. I can't wait for this discussion, right? Is there any difference between Bosa and what he did and the former 49er Colin Kaepernick did when he took a knee on the field? Is there a difference? And explain it to me if you think there is.
I think there is. And I think the biggest difference is there isn't a rule that's blatantly stating you can't do what Colin Kaepernick did. There is a rule in place clearly and unquestionably stating you cannot do what Nick Bosa did. I think, I see the similarities between each of them, but what I don't see is that rule that clearly states you can't do this and kind of a gray area of, that doesn't really fit into anything that rule says. And I guarantee after all this Kaepernick stuff, that rule was beefed up. And that's probably why we see it in the state that it is, because they were so worried about that conversation spiraling like it did with Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the anthem. So I think that's the difference for me. I think they're both, clear political statements, or, if you want to call Kaepernick's non-political, I could maybe see a case for it, but yeah, I mean, but it's that rule. It's that rule clearly stating this is not okay and this is against the rules, and Kaepernick kind of fell into that gray area.
So what you're saying is because Kaepernick was in a gray area and Bosa's is not, Bosa's is actually worse?
Yes. Yep.
Let me breathe a minute. So you're saying that a guy appearing on television for a few seconds with something on his hat is worse than a guy on the sideline refusing to put his hand over his heart for the country that gave him the opportunities that he is getting. And Bosa's is worse.
Yes, I think in the eyes of the NFL, that is worse. I think the display, they're not.
I didn't ask you guys in the NFL. What do you think? This isn't the NFL show, buddy. This is our show. I know what I think. I want to know what you think. What do you think? I don't care about the NFL right now.
Well, That's a tough question because,
Why I asked
sure,
it.
I think the display is worse for Kaepernick, but he didn't break any rules.
Okay, so let me break this down for you a little bit. And this is why I really wanted to get on this subject. I'm over here smiling because I kind of was, man, I've been writing little notes down. Okay, if Mitch goes this way, I'm going to go that way. And if Mitch goes this way, I'm going to go that way, right? So I've had this whole thing set up the entire time, right? Yes, you're right as far as he didn't break a rule. There was nothing in protocol. And I guess we're going to, I wanted to talk about it as Kaepernick because he was the former 49er. But I didn't have any problem with Tim Tebow and what he did with his kneeling. I just didn't like what Kaepernick's kneeling stood for and when he did it. If he would have done it at halftime, okay. If he would have done it after the game, okay. Don't do it while we're trying to play our national anthem. That's, I guess it's the first responder in me. I guess it's the job that I do. It's the things that are afforded to all of us. He was basically spitting in the face of that makes me more upset than his actual kneeling on the field, right? But I also have to say, and I said this from day one, he got blacklisted. We all know the man got blacklisted. And that was unfair too. He was allowed to have his opinion. I say this to people all the time. You're allowed to have your opinion, but you're also allowed to be wrong, right? So he was allowed to have his opinion, even if I didn't agree with it. You're allowed to have your opinion. I may not always agree with it. We're not going to never talk again. I'm not going to click the button and you're just going to disappear off the screen. And I'm going to be like, okay, it's my show now, right? No, it's not how we do this. We can still be adults and we can still respect each other, even though our opinions are different. So I'm going to ask you again. You're still going to stick with Kaepernick's was less intrusive than what Bosa's was.
Yes, because I can disagree with the way that Kaepernick did it. I can disagree with Bosa's message, and I'm not saying I disagree with either, but I can disagree with either of them and still see the nuance between, well, Bosa blatantly broke the rules for his opinion and his agenda. Kaepernick did not do the same. Kaepernick did not break the rules to voice his opinion. And I think that's the difference there. I can disagree or agree with either of the sentiment behind it, but the big thing for me is Bosa broke the rules to show his agenda. Kaepernick just did his display, and there were no rules to be broken.
Okay, I'm not going to agree with you, but I can respect your opinion. That's kind of how we'll leave it for the time. And for those of you who are watching this live, throw something up here for us. For those of you who are watching on a tape delay, you can always go to my X, which is, or I shouldn't say mine, it's our X, it's the Pod's X at the 643 and out Pod. If they want to give you the business over on your Twitter account, Mitch, what's your handle again, buddy?
Yeah, you'll get me at Mitchellbrook52, and you can also leave some comments on our YouTube at the 643 and out Pod. You can always leave comments there. We'll see them and even give you some interaction there, even if you are watching on the delay.
Right now, and again, you set me up perfectly. Thank you. I'm going right over to our Facebook account right now and taking a look at what actual, the 643 and out guys is our Facebook. It's spelled out D, and then the numbers 643, the and sign, and then out guys. That's where you can get us at on Facebook. So it'll be on the tape delay. As soon as we're done here, I will throw it up there, and you can watch it there, share it with all your friends, like it. A lot of those same things that you can do over on YouTube. And here's the thing, right? I'm not a big technological guy yet. I'm trying to get more into that realm. As you heard Mitch talking, and I'm over here playing music in the background because I'm fat fingering the buttons over here, right? I apologize, Mitch, if you're rounding your stuff out there. But you can subscribe to us on YouTube, and then every time we put something up on YouTube, which will get more and more frequent as we get going with everything that we've got, we're going to divide it up. We're going to try to do some 5-minute clips and stuff like that. For those of you who are like, man, I don't think I can watch an entire 2-hour show, but they've got some good things to say, so maybe I'll watch them in 5-minute clips here or there. we're really going to start trying to hammer that home and give some of that content to you as well. And when you subscribe, you will get a notice that says, hey, uh, the Cleat Geek and Mr. Moneybag put something up on their YouTube that you should probably pay attention to. So if you'll do that for us, we would greatly appreciate it. All right, last thing we're going to do, it's our last segment. It is the MLB 4-pitch talk. We are going to dive into today. Mitch, before we dive in, before I hit this music, what's the score of the game, buddy? Where are we at?
Yeah. To get started talking about baseball, the Yankees added on another one. They're up 6-4 in the bottom of the 7th right now, trying to hold on to force a game 5 here in the World Series.
I tell you who's begging for them to hold on. Fox. Fox is begging. They're like, please don't sweep and get a 4-game series, and that's all we get out of this. I mean, you got the Yankees and the Dodgers, two of the most powerful franchises in all of MLB. By the way, some really smart guy wrote a really nice article over on www.welikesportspc.com about the offseason and how I even think the Dodgers and the Yankees were battling each other in the offseason, and that might be why the Dodgers have a 3-0 lead currently, not counting this game because it's not over yet. So, it's interesting. Leave me a comment over there and tell me what you think of that particular article, and we will go from there. All right. Now, we are going to go into MLB 4-pitch talk. We are going to talk all about the qualifying offer. And the reason that we're talking about qualifying offer is, man, it seems like baseball's here and baseball's off-season's here, and then all of a sudden it's spring training, and here we go again, right? The 162-game season made this happen every time. It's so weird. Every time we go to this MLB segment, we start jumping. I'm watching the numbers climb. We're just so maybe we should just do a whole bunch of baseball stuff. But as Mitch is like, yeah, I'm good with that. We got to be tired. So there is a qualifying offer this year. It's a 1-year offer, and how they get that number for our fans and everybody else that may not know or understand it, let's teach you a little bit here. It is the average of the top 125 salaries in baseball. And this year, that average is $21.05 million. So players have until November 19th to accept or reject it, but the teams have only 5 days after the Super Bowl, oh my God, after the World Series. I'm trying to be diverse with the baseball segment. But they have 5 days to decide whether they want to offer them that $21.05 million or not. So that's where we're at. That's why we're doing this, because by the time we come on next week, the decisions are already all going to be made. And then we will talk about this as well next week. It's funny, because the NFL trade deadline is the same day as our show next week. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about there as well. So again, it's the MLB qualifying offer. There's some really good nuances that we're going to get into and we're going to talk about here. It's a 1-year, $21.05 million. Before we dive into specific players here, Mitch, are you under the, and this isn't in the notes, so I apologize, I'm just going to hit you with this one and see where we're going here, right? Is there a player that's worth $21.05 million to a team? Any player?
Yes. Yeah, there's a few. They're out there. They're out there, and it's because those teams are going to make a lot more money than that on some of these guys. A lot of these guys that are going to get that qualifying offer are not worth it, but those teams just want to hold on to them as much as they can for at least another season if they don't think they can get a real long-term deal done. So I think there's a lot of guys out there that are worth it. There's probably more guys out there that are going to get this qualifying offer that probably aren't worth it.
All right, there are 9 pitchers and several hitters. We're only going to look at 3 hitters here in a moment, because if we looked at all of the hitters, it would take us forever. But we are going to focus on the pitchers here. The first one we're going to look at is with the Boston Red Sox this past season. His name's Nick Pivetta. He's been very durable, and you're going to see, guys and gals who are watching us live, we got to, I took a lot of notes. We're going to give you a lot of information before you can decide, should we offer them the qualifying offer or not? That's kind of the game here, right? We're going to give you a bunch of stats, and then we're going to base our decision on those stats in which we give I'll have a vote. Mitch will have a vote. We'll see. If he was the GM, is he going to offer the qualifying offer to this player? If I'm the GM, am I going to offer the qualifying offer to this player? And it should be interesting as we go down through these 9 pitchers. So, again, the first one's Nick Pivetta. He's been very durable. He averaged 27 starts for 8 seasons now. He throws hard. He misses bats. His K for 9 is 10.0. So every 9 innings, he strikes out 10 people. But he also walks 3.3 every 9 innings as well. So you have to look at both and weigh them both out. But he does give up a ton of hits. He gave up 166 hits this past season. He gave up 30 home runs this year. It may not sound like a lot, but in starts, that's a lot of home runs. Okay, and he has a average ERA for those 8 years that he's been with baseball. He's been in the show. His average ERA in those 8 years is 4.76. So a lot of different stuff here to look at. 27 starts, 9 K for 9 of 10, walk for 9 of 3.3. Gives up a lot of hits, gives up a lot of runs, has a high ERA. Mitch, is he worth the qualifying offer, $21.05 million?
No, I don't think so. I think Boston really likes Pivetta, and I think they try to bring him back next year, but not for $21 million. I think Boston is kind of in the spot where they like him. They might not like him enough to give him $21 million. They hope they can bring him back, but I think they'd be fine if another team wants to give you that much money. You know what? Hasta la vista, because we can't give somebody with with these kind of numbers, that many hits, these many home runs, and that ERA over the last 8 years. We can't give that guy $21 million for this year, and who knows what he does after that. I think they try to put him on a more team-friendly deal, and if somebody wants to offer him that much money, they probably just wave him goodbye.
Yeah, but it's Boston, right? You can't say Boston can't afford $21 million for Nick Pivetta, right?
True, but I think I think they're really encouraged after this season, having a better year than I think most people thought they would, at least outside of Boston thought they would.
Okay.
I think they want to build off that, and spending money right there, they probably see it as it could be better spent elsewhere. So I just don't see them making that decision to give Pivetta this qualifying offer.
Okay, but I want to hit you with one more piece of this puzzle here, and that is I'm going to make sure I have he's 30 years old. So you don't want to give him a 4 or 5 year contract, right? So is it better to just go ahead and offer him the qualifying offer and say, okay, well, maybe he'll take this and we'll give him 21 for a year and then we'll see where he's at after that?
I still don't think so. I think that money can be spent elsewhere with the guy that could be on a longer term deal. Maybe you get the average value of the deal for somebody else around that 21 million, and you do get 3 years out of them. I think that money's a lot better spent there with Pivetta. I mean, he could really regress this year, this offseason. He could come back and be even better. So it's a real gamble with somebody like Pivetta, but you really it's a tough spot to be in because he could be nowhere near 21 million, and he could show you that, 21 might have been a little too low for him even.
Right. So I think it's an interesting one. Can we at least end the conversation on Nick Pivetta and say it's an interesting spot for Chicago to be, or excuse me, for Boston to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that this will be interesting to see how it plays out over the next week or so. The second guy we're going to look at from my Cincinnati Reds, for those people who are watching everything, I don't really have an AL team per se, but Mitch kind of has an AL team and he has an NL team. So he's got the Milwaukee Brewers and he's got the Detroit Tigers. I've got the Reds and I like the Diamondbacks, and Mitch does too because we both live here. But it does say Brewers win in the background there. You can't see it, so we know he's the big Brewer guy. I'm the big Reds guy. They're my top team. So Nick Martinez, he has a $12 million option that he will surely decline. So his 2024 ERA was at 3.10. He only had 142 and a third innings in 42 appearances because he did the whole I'll start sometimes, I'll relieve sometimes. So he was the hybrid guy. He made 16 starts and had 42 overall appearances. And here's an interesting stat that I wanted to throw at you as well, Mitch, because I think Nick Martinez is a really well, I'll give you my opinion in a moment, but I think this is kind of like Nick Pivetta. This is a really interesting spot for the Cincinnati Reds to be in. But I want to throw this at you. So the Reds spent right at $100 million in 2024, and if they give Nick Martinez $21.05 million, that is slightly more than 20% of that budget. So it then goes to say, all right, are they going to give Nick Martinez 20% of their overall budget for the season? I've given you all the stats. I've given you everything that you need. Tell me, Mitch, if you are the general manager of the Cincinnati Reds, are you offering Nick Martinez the $21.05 million qualifying offer?
For Cincinnati, no. Especially their spending, like you said, this year just spent $100 million. I don't think you can do 20% of that for one pitcher that isn't even a necessarily like starting pitcher. Like you said, kind of that hybrid between starting and bullpen. So no, I don't think Cincinnati does it, but I do think that Nick Martinez gets this money elsewhere if it's not in Cincinnati. I think he had a good enough year that somebody's going to pay him. And they're going to bring him in and say, hey, we're not doing this in between anymore. You're either going to be a starter for this amount of money, or you're going to be a reliever and you're not going to get this money. There's not going to be this in between anymore, because I think that's what makes this a really interesting and tough decision. I'd really like to see the Reds spend money and actually give him this qualifying offer, and then go out there and spend more money so it's not 20% of their payroll. But I don't see that happening. I think they're going to try to finagle their way to probably spend some more money, because they want a better season than they had this year. I think they have the pieces, the young pieces, that they're a lot closer than it seemed at times this season. So that little bit of money that they spend more this offseason could push them over the top and could be competing for the NL Central. But I'm just not sure that spending it here on Martinez is going to be where they do it.
I really like Nick Martinez. As you know, I watch pretty much every game. I can almost tell you that I watch every inning of every Cincinnati Reds game. He was a very big part for us at the end of the season when he was starting. I'm with you. I think they need to make a decision. I don't like the hybrid guys. He was the hybrid guy in San Diego when he was there. And honestly, he even said in the offseason that was one of the reasons why he came to Cincinnati, because Cincinnati was like, you know what, we're going to give you a chance to start. And then they did.
Yep.
I hope there's no resentment there. And Nick Martinez is like, you know what, I didn't want to be in San Diego. I don't want to be in Cincinnati because of this. I think in order to sign Nick Martinez, they're going to have to promise him a starting spot, even if it's a number 4, number 5 guy. Because they do have Hunter Green. They do have a couple of young pieces in there. They've got Lauer. They've got Nick Lodolo. So they've got some pieces. And I think that Nick Martinez probably would be a number 4, maybe even a number 5 guy. But I think you're going to have to, in order to sign him, and I think they can sign him to a pretty good contract. I mean, they might get 2 years and $21 million out of him if they promise him a starting gig. So I think it really goes back to all of that. Let's talk about another person who was a pure reliever, and this is another interesting one. A lot of these cases are pretty interesting for different reasons. We can kind of sell it. I think being a GM of these teams is much harder than what people think it is. You've really got to make some big decisions, especially on some of these smaller market teams on a $21 million shot. Kind of like what the Diamondbacks did with what was it?
Jordan Montgomery.
Jordan Montgomery. Thank you. That is the name. You demand. You demand. In fact, I will. Thank you for bailing me out there, buddy. I'll even give you this one.
Awesome.
All right. So, Jeff Hoffman with the Philadelphia Phillies. So he has had a dominant 2-year span with the Phillies. He had a 2.28 ERA, but he only gave him 118 in the third innings in both of those years. Okay, but he was dominant in those 118 innings. But 21.05 million is a lot for a reliever that's not a closer. Yet he was a big part for them, was really dominant for them. And I think as we've seen, especially in these playoffs, if you've been paying attention, these setup guys are just as important as the relievers. I mean, how many times did you see Cleveland put in their closer? How many times did you see the Mets put in their closer in like the fifth or sixth inning, right? They should be interchangeable parts, but the closer just seems to get paid more. So can the Phillies afford to pay Jeff Hoffman, even though he's been really dominant? Can they afford to give him $21 million?
No, I don't think they can. I think it's too much for a reliever that doesn't give you the amount of innings you really need. I completely agree. It used to be the closer was the closer, and he wasn't coming in until the ninth inning, no matter what. And the rest of your guys did it. So I do think it's more so now than ever, closed by committee kind of thing. So you probably will start seeing those reliever salaries get closer to that closer role because they are kind of more interchangeable now, or at least teams are using them more interchangeably. But I don't think I still think 21 million is too high for a guy that's 20 or 31 years old. I think again the Phillies try to bring him back on more of a team friendly deal, give him a longer term deal than I think most places will for a 31-year-old reliever.
Right.
But it seems like he likes Philly. Philly likes him. I mean, how could you not with those numbers in relief? But I just think 21 is too high for a reliever.
Right, and there's the other model as well. There's the Tampa Bay model. For those of you who are out there with us, like Tampa Bay model, what's he talking about? The Tampa Bay model is basically we're going to just keep throwing league minimum guys in the bullpen and seeing who does well. Right, we're not going to spend a ton of money on these relievers. We're just going to keep throwing them out there. And okay, so this guy did really well for us for 5 or 6 relief outings, and then he bombed for 4 or 5. Well, we're just going to put him back in AAA. We'll call up the next guy. The Players Union was getting pretty upset with Tampa Bay and a few other teams that were doing that kind of thing, almost making them like they're just interchangeable parts, right? And nobody wants to be an interchangeable part. We all want to have a role. We all want to have say in what's going on. And with that particular model, they're just going to keep throwing little bits of money at it instead of paying a reliever a big money contract here. This one's probably the only one that might be a slam dunk. I think both of us are going to agree on the no here, but we'll see. Shane Bieber for the Cleveland Guardians. He is eligible for this $21.1 million qualifying offer. He had Tommy John surgery in April. He will probably be back before the All-Star game in the 2025 season, but you don't know what you're going to get here. It's a big risk. I'm not sure Cleveland can afford to take that risk. What do you think?
I agree. Too much of a risk. Still a great pitcher when he's healthy, but just too much of a risk. You're not going to have him for half the season next year. 21 million is too much. I think again, Guardians tried to bring him back, but not for that amount of money when they know he's not going to be there to start half the season. So I think it's just too much. I think Shane's a great pitcher. Still one of the best in the league. I mean, top 20 for sure. But just too much for too much risk.
Right. And I think it'll be really interesting to see who goes after him because I don't even know if the Guardians are going to even go after him, if they're just going to let him float out there somewhere and see if maybe they can't sweep him up like right before spring training or something and bring him back in on one of these prove-it deals. They may even bring him back in on a 2-year deal that pays him a lot the second year with an opt-out where if he performs really well and he gets these escalators, then we'll pay him $20 million in the 2026 season or something like that. It'll be interesting to see what Shane Bieber gets and what teams think he's worth the spot that he is at. I'll give him some props. This past spring training season, I watched him sign a ton of autographs. I was really, really disappointed in what happened to him.
mine for this fat old guy. He signed a card for me as well. I saw him sign a lot. He was funny. I'll quickly give you the story. I know we're at almost 2 hours right now. We still got more things to get to. He would come out on the field with a hoodie. He would pull the drawstrings on the hoodie. You couldn't see who he was. I mean, he literally would be like, he'd be like right up next to you. You still couldn't see who the heck he was. He had everything all pulled down. But if somebody recognized him and said Shane or whatever, he'd pull the hoodie back and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, guys, how you doing?" And then for everybody that was right there in that general area, he'd sign all the autographs for you. So it was kind of I'd never seen anybody else do that before. It's kind of a neat little nuance, and I like seeing people who does it. So show me some personality. Like, Michael Walker is the next one we're going to talk about. He signed a 2-year, $32 million with it, allows him to opt out, and he's going to. He's had a 12-year career. 2024 was his second highest, and he pitched his third straight season, the sub 350 ERA. Pretty impressive. He has his K for 9 is 8.0, his walk for 9 is 2.8. So not quite as many strikeouts as Pivetta, but also not as many walks. He has 101 wins in his 12-year career to go along with 62 losses, and he's only made 30 starts twice in that 12-year career. And I think this one is the thing. It's like, okay, he's a good pitcher, but he's a good pitcher for Kansas City, right? He is the Kansas City guy, right? So he's essentially going to be their third starter because you're going to have Cole Reagan as your number one. You're more than likely going to have Seth Lugo as your number two. So will the Kansas City Royals, will the mid-market, possibly low-market Kansas City Royals pay $21 million for their third, essentially, starter? That's what you think.
You know, I don't think they will, and I think this is a really tough spot for Kansas City too, because they really like what they built this season, and bringing guys like Waka, like Seth Lugo in, they were really happy about where they were at, and just unfortunately couldn't get it done at the end of the season, missed the playoffs. But this is going to be a tougher decision than I think they thought it would be, because they do need to keep that rotation where it's at. They do need, because that's a big reason of why they were in contention for the postseason this season. And I don't think they want to lose Waka, but I do think it's really tough to justify a $21 million contract for your third starter and it just be a year. So this is another one that I think the team is going to try to bring back, but on a longer term deal where they can both be happy with the value that they're at. You know, he's definitely going to opt out because he's going to get more than that 2-year, $32 million deal than he signed this year, because he did perform really well. And now he's got 2 seasons in a row where he performed really well. So it's a tough spot for the Royals to be in. I don't think they're going to do it, but I think they're going to question it more than they would have been, but without this season under him.
Right, and this is the tough spot, right? So, Mitch, as the Kansas City Royals general manager, says, no, I'm not going to do it. But, man, you've only got 5 days to decide. The World Series is going to be over here soon. You've got 5 days, and that's it. You have to make a decision, and especially with a team like the Royals, this is really going to affect their overall payroll and their overall season by what you do with this one pitcher. So you're right. It's a very interesting spot for them to be in. I want to look at Max Fried and Corbin Burns here. We're going to take a pretty big dive on them. I think I want to give you some numbers here, and I'm even going to tell you that I was a little surprised by some of these numbers when it was all said and done. So Max Fried, 8-year career, all with the Braves. He is 73-36 as far as a win-loss record goes. 3.07 ERA, 8.8 Ks per 9, 2.5 walks per 9. He averaged 189 innings in those 8 seasons. He also averaged 32 starts. And remember earlier when we said Nick Pivetta gives up a lot of home runs at 30. Well, Max Fried, in basically the same amount of innings, only gives up an average of 16 home runs. So there are some, we're kind of looking at some different comparisons here between the two. And I also want to throw out the numbers here for Corbin Burns. And the reason I'm doing this Mitch, you don't know because I didn't give you these notes on what you have, but hang with me here for a second. So Corbin Burns actually has only been in the league for 7 years. I had to look that up twice. I was like, really? He's only been in the league 7 years? But he has. He's only been in the league 7 years. That's a year less than Max Fried. And if you'd have put a gun to my head and said, which guy's been here longer, I'd have been like, oh, Corbin Burns. I wouldn't even have thought about it. But the reality is he's only been in Major League Baseball 7 years. His last 4, he's been an all-star. He is 60 and 36. So, 60 wins for him, 73 wins in a year longer career for Max Fried as we kind of compare the two. Corbin Burns, I would have said, had a lower ERA than Max Fried, but that's not the case. Max's is 3.07. Corbin Burns is not a lot of difference, but it is a little, 3.19. Corbin strikes out more people, 10.5, the most out of any pitcher that's in this qualifying offer spot. 10.5 K per 9, 2.5 walk per 9. Basically has the same innings average as Max does, a little less starts, 28 starts, and he gives up a few more home runs, which I was a little surprised to see as well, but that may have been because he's pitching in Milwaukee's home park as well. He gives up an average of 20 home runs. So Atlanta has the decision on Max Fried, and the Baltimore Orioles have the decision on Corbin Burns. Mitch, you're the GM of both. Are you signing Max? Are you signing Corbin?
I'm actually giving the qualifying offer to both of these guys, and it's for different reasons, even though they are on paper really, really close, and a lot closer than I think most people would think, because, when I think people think of Corbin Burns, they think of a perennial Cy Young candidate. I'm not sure they put Max Fried on that same level, but if you look at these guys' body of work over the last 8-7 years, they're really similar. And I think that speaks to the way that Max Fried works and the way he goes out and just does his stuff. And he doesn't need the limelight like Corbin Burns does. He's not in, all these big conversations and, crapping on his old team the way Corbin Burns crapped on Milwaukee. He's not going out there and talking, and the Braves love Max Fried, and I think that's part of the reason they're going to give him this qualifying offer, because they love him. He seemingly loves Atlanta, and I think they are going to give him that qualifying offer, not only for what he's done on the field, obviously a great winning pitcher for him, and it's not just the ERA, it's not just the Ks, it's not just the batted balls. It's the winning that he does for that team. 73 and 36. That's a really, really good win percentage for a starting pitcher, and they can't give that up that easily. So I do think they'll offer him. I think the Orioles want another year with Corbin Burns to kind of win him over and show him like, hey, this could be a long-term place for you. So I do think they give him the qualifying offer. Corbin Burns still one of the top pitchers in baseball, and I think another full season in Baltimore might be enough for them to kind of sway him some more and win him over. Like, hey, we traded for you for a reason. We believe in you, and we want you to be an Oriole for a long time, longer than just this year. So I think for different reasons, they both get the qualifying offer, and they both probably accept.
Oh, now you're going to say they both accept. I'm going to throw a monkey wrench.
I'm more confident in Fried accepting. I'm not sure where Corbin's head is at. He kind of throws me for a loop every time. I think I know where he's at, so I'm not even going to try.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Corbin had an up and down year at times this year, so he probably thinks he's probably going to bet on himself, give one more year of work, and really go out there and be that Cy Young candidate we saw in Milwaukee. And try to get an even bigger deal after this season.
Right, and $21 million is not a bad payday for a year, right? Yeah, right. So, okay, so we talked about this some last week. There's a lot of rules in Major League Baseball that I think a lot of the average fans don't really know and have the nuances for. We're going to talk about one of them. I'm going to reach over here and grab my notes so that I make sure I do this correctly here. This is one of them. This collective bargaining agreement is a lot more further reaching than I think a lot of people think that it is. And I'm going to give you some examples of it right now with these two pitchers in Max Fried in Atlanta and Corbin Burns in Baltimore. So there's a big difference and the compensation that the Orioles and the Braves will receive, because the Orioles are a revenue recipient. If Burns signs elsewhere for more than $50 million, they'll receive the first supplemental pick after round one. So if they offer him the qualifying offer, he says no, and then he signs with another team, and that contract that he gets from that other team is $50 million or greater, which we both know that it will be, then the Orioles will get the first round pick after that first round is done. So 32 teams go get pick number 33, right? Let's look at what the Braves get. So the Braves, because they exceeded the luxury tax, there's more penalties than just money here, okay? And I don't think a lot of fans realize this. But the Braves, because they exceeded the luxury tax, will only receive the minimal compensation if they give him the qualifying offer. He turns it down, and then he signs somewhere else. So they will actually only get the selection after the fourth round if that happens to Max Fried. So I think that is another reason why these teams will have to make a big decision on whether they want to offer these guys the qualifying offer or not. I don't really want to apologize because we're cranking along right here. We're really diving into this, and I think a lot of people love it when we do this. The numbers say so. We keep climbing and climbing and climbing, even though we've gone over 2 hours. Mitch and I say every week, we're like, okay, 90 minutes. So the last two pictures that we're going to look at, well, I tell you what, Mitch, I'll give you a few seconds. What about that qualifying offer and stuff? Do you think that makes much of a difference to the teams as they're looking at everything?
I think it does, and honestly, I really think they need to relook at this too, because to me, I see these as two completely different situations. The Orioles chose to trade for Corbin Burns last offseason. Mm-hmm. They gave up their capital for essentially what they knew could be a 1-year buy for the guy. Yep. Max Fried's been in Atlanta for 8 years, and they're going to get almost nothing for him. These, to me, should be flipped. If Max Fried decides after all this time and all this happy time in Atlanta that he's going to decline the qualifying offer, he's going to go elsewhere, you would think that they would incentivize the Braves for keeping a guy for that long, for 8 seasons, and say, hey, you know what, if you lose this guy that you still want to keep, because in my opinion, MLB should be incentivizing guys to stay with a team their whole career for a long time. We'll give you more so than we would give a team that just traded for this guy for 1 year. Then, they just flip them. Because I really don't see the incentive for teams to try to keep a guy that they love, that their fan base loves, and that can probably bring fans out to the ballpark more than a team that just traded for a guy that their casual fans don't even know of. So I think they need to look at this again and kind of make some changes to make sure that it makes more sense, because this doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I wanted to bring this up because this is the players' union doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a lot of, again, I've said it 4 or 5 times, and I'm not trying to insult our fans, but I really don't think they understand and they look at the nuances of this. This is the players all getting together and say, we don't care what team we're on. We don't care what the situation is. We want to do what's best for our players, and we want them to get paid. And this is the way for them to get paid, right? That's all they're after here. And as if these guys don't get paid enough. The Max Scherzers of the world and the Garrett Coles of the world are the guys standing on top of tables in these boardroom meetings just beating on stuff going, no, we need to be paid. And look what Max Scherzer got paid, and look what he gave to the Texas Rangers. And I'll just get off my soapbox and leave that alone, right? So the last 2 pictures we're going to look at are with the same team. They're with the New York Mets. And I'm going to make you do something crazy here. I'm going to make you say I want both of them or I want neither of them on these qualifying offers, all right? Okay, so the Mets have 2. They have Sean Manaea and Luis Severino. Manaea, $13.5 million player option, which he's going to certainly decline that. He'll be, in his 2024 season, he made 32 starts, a lot, 32 starts. Did not miss a start, by the way.
181 and 2/3 innings, didn't miss a start in the playoffs, didn't miss a start at all. Okay, 3.47 ERA, 9.1 K per nine, 3.1 walk per nine, a little high on the walk. He's been in the big leagues for 9 years. His record's only 77 and 62, and he has never won more than 12 games in a single season. All right, those last two things are big red flags to me. Then you got Severino. He was on a 1-year, $13 million kind of a prove-it contract, which he did. He proved it to a certain extent. 2024, he made 31 starts. He did have a little bit of an injury hiccup in June, but he only missed 3 starts. 182 innings, 3.91 ERA, 8 Ks per nine, 3 walks per nine. He's been in the league for 9 years. His record is 65 and 44, and in 2024, even though we've given him all of these accolades, he only won 11 games and he lost 7. I know that the Mets have a endless checkbook, right? That pen can just keep right on writing, and it really makes no difference because Steve Cohen owns that. But I'm asking you, Mitch, as the general manager of the New York Mets, you've got to sign both of them or none of them. Which one are you doing?
You know, I think I'm going to surprise you here, and I'm going to say I'm going to sign both of them because I know those last 2 stats about Manaea did not look good, but he has kind of he's been reborn this season, and he had a really, really solid year, and I think that's true for both of these guys. Luis Severino kind of got thrown out like trash out of the other team in New York that's playing in the World Series right now, and they both kind of found a home in the Mets organization. And I think you want to keep both those guys. I think they had a really good year for both of them that you can build off of. And I think, you know, you don't know how many more years Manaea can do it. You really don't know what Severino's future looks like either. I think you take the gamble and give them both the qualifying offers, see what this year can look like, and then reevaluate after. Because I think building on this year, a team would be open to giving them deals, and probably for what they want. So I think you want to keep them in New York and give them the qualifying offers. I think they both accept, so I think you do give it to them. And money isn't really an object to Steve Cohen, like you said. So I do think you bring them back to New York, you let them build off their good seasons. And honestly, the win-loss, the only thing I'll say about the win-loss for Severino is the Mets had a really tough time this year in the first half of the season, and they turned it on late. But it's hard to say how much of that 11-7 record was really on Severino and what was on the Mets' poor play to start the season. So I think you bring them both back.
Okay, so I'm going to be mean here because I haven't given you all the information. All right. General manager of the New York Mets, Mitch Middlebrook. Now let me give you all the information and see if you still say, yes, I'm going to sign both of them. Because of where they are in the luxury tax and because of the penalties they are going to have to pay when they reach over that money threshold, right? These 2 contracts are not going to cost the Mets $21.05 million. They are actually, if their payroll stays the same and they don't dump a bunch of people, they don't dump a bunch of salary, yada, 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 right? So I can only deal with what we've got right now. Okay, I can't predict the future on this. But if their payroll stays the same and they sign both of these guys, they will, because both of their contracts are going to be the same, $21.05 million, right? They are essentially, ready? I'm glad you're sitting down. Because when I got this stat, I was like, oh my God. They are essentially going to cost the Mets with salary and fines over the luxury tax $44.6 million apiece. Now, are you signing them?
No. That's just too much. You can't do it for 2 question mark guys. Even if you did like the year and want to see them keep building in the organization, you can't do it. I mean, sure, Steve Cohen's got the money to do it, but you just can't do it.
Right. Is it financially responsible is what you have to ask yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of thought you would change your mind, and I have to admit I was kind of mean to set that all up. But I didn't throw that in the notes, everybody. We do show notes, and then I share them with Mitch, and then I just happen to leave that part. All right, so we've got a bunch of hitters. I told you in the beginning we're going to pick 3 of them. I'm just going to give you a little because we're at 2 hours and almost 15 minutes here. So I would like to kind of wrap this up in the next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 hitters that could be qualifying offer. So I'm going to give you just little bits and pieces of a couple things, a couple sentences, and then we're going to say yes or no, and we're going to move on pretty quick. Some of these are going to be like no brainers, right? Let me give you a couple of the no brainers right off the bat. Gleyber Torres for the Yankees. Are you giving him $21 million?
No.
No. Okay. Well, we can just throw that one out. Jerickson Profar. I know he had a really good bounce back season, but he's not had very good seasons before this. Are you giving Jerickson Profar $21 million?
Yeah, I think that's a tougher one than we would have thought. This season, really, he showed a lot, and you see the upside now. But exactly like you said before this, you kind of expect a guy to be what he showed you on average. So I think 21's too high for him still. But if he has another season like this, another 2 seasons like this, yeah, he's definitely in that conversation.
Okay, so yes or no, though?
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right. And just so you know, we are trending on Twitter right at the moment just because we keep climbing in people. Even though we're running over, we still keep climbing in people. Love you guys. Appreciate it. Tyler O'Neill for the Red Sox. Are we going to sign him to a $21 million deal?
No, that's a pretty easy no.
No.
A lot of outside of opening day and those home runs on opening day, I think he's hit one every opening day the last 5 or 6 years.
Right. Crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
But then he's not done very well for the rest of the season. So I'm not giving him a big payday for one game, right?
Yeah.
Here's the one that's a little interesting to me, and I'll be interested to see what you think. Ha-Seong Kim. And I think this is more of what he means to the Padres more than what he means as a second baseman or as a utility guy or to another team. I'm not sure if he's worth $21 million to another team, but I think he might be worth $21 million to the Padres.
I agree, actually, and only being 28, I do think if I'm the Padres GM, I'd give Ha-Seong a qualifying offer. I think exactly the reason. If it's any other team, he's not going to get that much, but I think he could play anywhere for the Padres, and that really means a lot for them with the guys they have seem to always kind of go down and be a little injury prone. So I do think actually the Padres offer him, and he's not going to get that money elsewhere. But the upside for Ha-Seong Kim is huge. So I do think they give him it.
Okay, I kind of agree with you. I think if I were Preller, A.J. Preller, there we go. I had to think of what's his first name? He doesn't have a first name. He has 2 first initials. So A.J. Preller, I think if I was him, I would give the qualifying offer. I'm going to skip over 3 third basemen for a second, kind of put those towards the end. How about Teoscar Hernandez for the Los Angeles Dodgers? They've already got a big-time offensive lineup with Freeman and Betts and Ohtani and everything else. Can they afford? Well, we all know they can afford it, but is it financially responsible? How about that for the Dodgers to give Teoscar Hernandez $21 million?
See, I think that's the reason no. Kind of what you shed light on with the 2 Mets pitchers kind of speaks to this as well. It's going to cost you a lot more than just the $21 million when you're paying that luxury tax as well. So I think with the rest of their lineup, even with what he's done in the postseason, and he's been a huge piece of their offense this postseason, I don't think you can shell out $21 million for him.
Okay. Let's go with kind of an obvious one here. Did the Yankees offer Juan Soto the qualifying offer?
Oh, without a doubt, he'll decline and he'll go off to the bank for a $500 million paycheck this offseason for sure. But yeah, you at least got to offer it and hope he's dumb enough to do it, but he's not going to be.
Yeah, he's got the devil himself and Scott Boras representing him, so
Yeah,
There's
he's got a blank check he's getting ready to
Yeah.
sign, so that's not going to do it. But you at
Right.
least get an offer.
Right. Well, you offer him, and then when he signs, because you know he's going to sign for a big contract somewhere else, right? That means you get the compensation if you're the Yankees, so at least you get something. And you got to remember too, they gave up a lot to San Diego, so you're going to get one season out of Juan Soto, and then you're going to get some compensation for him. So you definitely offer him the contract, even just on that precedent alone. Um, another Oriole that we're going to look at here, uh, Anthony Santander. Corner outfielder, not a great runner. Does the defense out there is really above average. If you look him up on some of the metric sites, he actually is a better defender than I thought he was, and is a pretty good offensive threat in your lineup. So, do the Baltimore Orioles put some eggs in Anthony Santander's basket? About 21 million of them.
I don't think so. I think, he had a really good season, and I like what I see out of Santander, but I don't think they offer him. I think it's just a little too much for him, and that money could probably be spent elsewhere. They really don't need the outfielders. I know they've made some trades and gotten rid of some guys. Got rid of Austin Wells, which was kind of their backup plan. But I just think that's a little bit too much for Santander when he's only had one season like we saw this year.
Okay. If you are a big Cincinnati Reds fan, we have Ricky Logan, by the way, who just put out an article about the first steps. We're going to start doing a lot of our teams that we cover in the off season. We're going to look at steps they take in order to make better teams this coming off season. And he has an opinion on Anthony Santander and whether he should be a Cincinnati Red. Go over and click on that article. It's the very first one. When you come up on the page, you'll see it. It's got a neon C for the Cincinnati Reds in the background. Click on that. Give that a read. And tell Ricky if he's right or wrong. All right. So we've got Anthony Santander. This is going to be interesting because I thought that Houston would offer him some kind of contract either this past offseason or sometime during the season, and they never did. You've got Alex Bregman sitting out there as a big-time third baseman. What did the Houston Astros do with him?
I don't think you can give him the qualifying offer. I think 21's a little too much for him right now. They love him in Houston, and it's going to be hard to see him go. But you've been paying him $30.5 million the last two seasons, and just haven't really gotten the production you need from him. So it's going to be hard to watch him go, but it's too much for him. He's hit 260 his last three seasons now. It's too much for Bregman with going into his age 31 season. So I don't think they do. I think if they were going to bring him back, they would have got the deal done already. He's going to test the free agent market, and maybe they bring him back after that. But I think 21 is too much for him right now.
But the problem that Houston has is they don't have a third baseman waiting in the wings to take his spot. So they're going to have to sign somebody. So I guess it depends on how much they really like Alex, and will they sign him to that $21 million offer?
Yeah, and do they try to stop Dubon from being such a utility guy and slot him in at third to kind of fit the spot? But yeah, you're right. They really don't have a clear guy that they can bring up and slot in there. So it's a tough one.
Right. Now let's look at three first basemen, and then I'm saving this one to the end because he plays for a certain team that has your little decal there in the background. So I'm going to be very interested to see what you think about that. Excuse me. So the three first basemen are Paul Goldschmidt, Christian Walker, Pete Alonso. All three of them are subject to the qualifying offer. Let's start with Paul Goldschmidt, the oldest one of the three. Do you give Paul a 1 year, $21.05 million contract?
No, you don't. His production has dipped too much, and at his age, you just can't do it. It's too much for what you're getting from Paul Goldschmidt right now. I think if for any reason they do offer him in St. Louis, which it doesn't look like they're going to. I saw a report that they told Nolan Arenado that they're going to be trying to ship him out. So it sounds like they're trying to cut payroll as much as they can. I don't think they're going to offer him, and I don't think they should based on what they've gotten from him in the last few years. It's too much for a guy that old and that isn't going to be able to play first base much longer with his age.
Right. I think it's time for as much as I'm a Reds guy, you're a Brewers guy, we're in the same division as the Cardinals, and we really don't want to see them succeed. But if I am the GM and I put my Cardinal hat on, my bald head here, and say, okay, am I going to sign these guys? No. In fact, I'm gonna try to get rid of uh, Nolan Arenado. Whew, that was easy for me. And then I'm going to try to get rid of Paul Goldschmidt, and I'm going to try to bring in some younger kids. I mean, they've got Walker that they could put in at third base. They don't have Yepes anymore. I kind of thought maybe he would be the answer for them at first, but he actually went to the Washington Nationals. So they're going to have to go get somebody. I'm just not sure if you can pay Paul Goldschmidt this kind of money. What about Christian Walker? I think he's the interesting one of these three. He's a Gold Glove winner. He gives you a lot of power. He gives you some doubles. He's a good team leader. And again, I don't think what he does at first base defensively can be taken for granted whatsoever. Do you give Christian Walker the $21.05 million qualifying offer?
I agree. I think this is the most interesting one. I think you offer for sure. You hope he accepts, but I'm not really sure where Christian Walker's head is at right now. I could kind of see it going either way for him. He might be frustrated with the Diamondbacks. He's been in trade talks at around the deadline, whether it be from the media or from some internal stuff in the Diamondbacks organization for years now. And he might be sick of hearing about that. He might say, you know what, I want to go somewhere where I know they want me. And I don't have to question whether or not I'm going to have to move me and my family mid-season again, like I do every other year. And especially signing that qualifying offer, that puts you on the trade block pretty much right away if the Diamondbacks aren't contending before the trade deadline. So I think this is a really interesting one. I think it's a pretty easy decision to offer and hope he accepts, but whether or not he does accept and want to stay in Arizona, I think is the bigger question mark here. So I think that is a tough one and probably the biggest question mark out of these three first basemen.
Right. So I'm not offering Paul Goldschmidt the money. To be very honest with you, I think you hit on a little bit here, but I'm going to go a little deeper with it. I think Christian Walker, he's 31 years old, if I remember correctly. So he's getting up there. He's got one more big payday left. And if he takes the qualifying offer, don't get me wrong, $21 million a year is nothing to sneeze at. But then if he turns 32, goes into his 33, and he get one more 3 to 5 year contract, that's pretty big money. And I honestly think the answer is no. So I believe he's going to try to get paid this year, and the qualifying offer is not going to do it for him. So I think he wants a long-term deal. And then from the Diamondbacks' perspective, do you remember, Mitch? This is okay. Here we go. Put your cap on for a second. So, I just lost. Hang on. GM for Mike Hazen. There we go. Mike Hazen, GM for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Do you remember who the first person was he picked in the first draft that he was ever part of the Diamondbacks with?
I don't. I'm going to guess Christian Walker.
No. So Christian Walker was a free agent, but I won't. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to be mean to you. All right. He picked Pavin Smith. Pavin Smith was his first draftee, right? So he thought that Pavin was going to be a really good player. Now is his chance to prove it. Let me ask you this: if you can, Pavin Smith is going to be there for a lot less money than Christian Walker's $21 million, right? So what if you get Pavin Smith and then you re-sign Bell, who you had towards the end of your season? That's kind of your backup guy. You know how much money you can save at the first base position for the Arizona Diamondbacks and where you can put those funds? I think, to be honest, we're going to do wow, and our numbers still continue to climb. We're at 2.5 hours almost, and they keep ticking up little by little. This is amazing, guys. I think that's smarter. Kind of like when they said goodbye to Paul Goldschmidt, and a lot of people were like, "Oh no, Paul Goldschmidt, we can't let him go." And then he starts waning on his production, and everybody's like, "Boy, glad we got rid of that guy, right?" But they didn't feel that way in the beginning. I think it's going to be the same way with Christian Walker. You're going to go, oh my gosh, I don't want to get rid of Christian Walker. But then after it's all said and done, you're going to be like, oh, well, Pavin Smith was a pretty good addition, and he was, a whole lot less money. And then you've got Bell to back him up. So I like that move better. I want them to do Pavin Smith and Bell and let Walker go. I like Christian Walker a lot, but I think it's financially responsible is the best thing to let him go. Let's go with Pete Alonso. This is our next to last one. We'll get these done here pretty fast, and then we'll get rid of everybody and tell you thank you very much for being with us here. Pete Alonso, do you offer Pete Alonso $21 million? And I think the bigger thing here is, will he accept it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You definitely offer him the qualifying offer of $21 million, but I don't think he's going to accept it. He's out for a big payday as well. And I think it's kind of the same situation with Christian Walker. He knows he's going to get paid, and the longer you play and the more seasons you sign without getting that big payday, the more chance you have of missing out on it entirely. Whether it's injury or whether a little bit of a dip in production, I think it's too big of a risk, and Pete Alonso understands that. He knows the time to get his payday is now, and so he's not going to accept it. He is going to go get that big payday, but I think you at least have to offer it, again, for the compensation that you're going to get when he declines it.
Okay, so you think he is going to? So if you're the Mets, you're going to offer it to him, but you're going to offer it to him only because you're pretty sure he's going to decline it. Then you're going to get the compensation.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, see, I'm in the same boat with you. And just as a side note, and I'll kind of ask you this real fast. I know we keep saying we're going to wrap this up, and then I keep coming up with more questions. But are you going to pay Pete Alonso just because he hit a really good home run in Milwaukee? And I don't know. I just don't think that. My personal opinion is Pete Alonso is not going to be worth the money that him and Scott Boras are going to want for him. I would let him go somewhere else.
I agree, and I think that I think he loves being a Met, but I think Pete Alonso gets a lot of attention and he gets a lot of praise that I'm not sure he would get elsewhere. I think that a really solid player and a really good power bat, but there's still a lot of holes in that swing, and there's a lot of things that Pete Alonso doesn't do as well as you need him to do for the amount of money that he's going to require this offseason. So I do think it's a really tough spot for the Mets to be in, and they're probably hoping that because of their relationship, they could work something out that helps a little bit of both sides. Pete still gets his payday, and the Mets get to keep the polar bear in New York.
Okay, I'm just going on record right now as saying I'm not giving him a long-term deal for big time money. I'll give him a short-term deal for big time money. I'll give him I would much rather give him 3 at 75 than I would 7 at 300. Just my own personal opinion on it, and I want to tease this one. This is the last one. Willie Adames for the Milwaukee Brewers, right? And I'm saving this one for the end. I'm teasing this on purpose because I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next week. Next week, I'm going to tell you why there is no reason whatsoever why the Milwaukee Brewers cannot re-sign Willie Adames. I get tired of all these teams, the Reds. I love them, but they've done this to me in the past. The Reds, the Brewers, the A's, the Guardians, all these teams. Like the Guardians have a similar choice. You're going to see it with Josh Naylor. He's in the final year of his contract, and typically the Guardians trade these guys way about now. So I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but I want to talk next week. There is no reason, none, and I'll prove it to you mathematically, why the Brewers cannot sign Willie Adames. And if they don't, I think you and all the other Brewer fans in the world should boycott that team. But that's just my opinion, right? We'll get to it next week, though. First, I want to ask you, and our numbers still are climbing. First, I want to ask you, Mitch, if you are the Milwaukee Brewers, do you sign Willie Adames $21 million to play shortstop for you and put a cheese curd on it?
Without a doubt, you give him an endless supply of cheese curds with it. You gotta offer him the qualifying offer and just hope he accepts it. He's not going to. Again, same situation. You gotta offer. He's gonna decline it. Get what you can if you can't re-sign him in Milwaukee. But I'm completely on board with you. I know we talked about it a lot last week too. We got to stop letting these owners, these billionaire owners, cry poor me, when they got to shell out a big payday for these guys in the small market. The Cleveland Guardians owner specifically, he's the fifth richest owner of all of Major League Baseball, and he's one of the cheapest they got. We got to stop giving these guys a break when they don't want to shell out money for their all-stars and the guys that make them all this money. So I'm completely in agreement with you. I'm really excited to talk about it more in depth next week. Obviously, as I love the Brewers and I love Willy Adames, I love not only what Willy Adames does on the field, but who he is, the fun he brings to the game, and who he is as a teammate. So I'm really excited to get more into this. But yes, without a doubt, you offer him the qualifying offer. You hope he accepts. And if you don't get the deal done, at least you get some compensation for him leaving.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to try to see if I can get Willy Adames to meet us in the parking lot, and we're going to try to do our own special show tomorrow or next week with you, me, and Willy Adames in the parking lot. Okay.
Deal.
All right. Good deal. And I'm with you. I would also sign, or I would offer him the qualifying offer if I am. I've never used this music before, by the way, just so you know. I have no idea what it's about to play. So I may not like this. I'm already starting out late. So, yes, we're going to offer him the qualifying offer, and then we're going to see where it goes from there. But like I said, there is no reason Milwaukee cannot sign him. We're going to talk about that next week. We're also going to talk about the NFL trade deadline. We're also going to switch to straight music. So let me find something else here. Let's do this one, see how this works out. So the other thing that we're going to talk about is the NFL free agency. I know that's coming. We're going to talk about the big game. The big game would be Ohio State and Penn State. That will happen this weekend. And then we got another big game coming up, which will be LSU hosting Alabama. So we got some great college football to talk about. We got some great NFL stuff to talk about. I can't wait to get into the financial ramifications of these small market teams, especially when it comes to Willie Thomas and the Milwaukee Brewers. Mitch, I'll let you have a little bit of time here. What do you want to tell our fans as we're closing out the show?
Yeah, I like the song switch up. I think the last one was a little too somber because we should all be celebrating. Even though this World Series, you might not like the teams, we have another day of baseball. As the Yankees held on, they tacked some runs on, 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and won 11-4. So there will be another day of baseball in this 2024 season. There will be a Game 5 here as the Yankees fend off the Dodgers and at least force another game. Don't get swept. They avoid the sweep in the World Series. You know what? It's more baseball, so happy days. We get at least one more day of the season.
Now, I know we keep saying, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to wrap this up. But should our numbers keep climbing? So, because the Yankees were able to add these runs on again, swing the momentum in their favor, even though they're down 3-1.
Yes, I think that's exactly what they needed to do. Honestly, they played the exact team they needed to. They had the power. They had the base hits. They scored runs from the long ball, and they manufactured them themselves with base hits. This is exactly what the Yankees needed to do all series. If they can keep this rolling into Game 5 and make this a 3-2 series, who knows what happens? If they push this thing to a Game 7, anything can happen. It's the 2 best words in sports, Game 7. And if they push it there, it's anybody's ball game. It's winner take all. So, I'm really rooting for them to push this to a Game 7. But who knows what's going to happen? All we know right now is they bought themselves another day, and that means for all of us baseball fans, another day of it.
All right, buddy. Yeah, I appreciate you being on with us. I know you're sticking around with us. I'm starting to get hungry. I barely ate anything before I came on here. So that's why you can only see here up. There's much fat underneath here that I don't want anybody to see. So I'm going to fill that fat up with some breakfast casserole that my wonderful wife made. I've been smelling it for hours. Shut up, Nick. No, we love doing this. I know 2 hours and 40 minutes before it's all said and done here.
But it was great. It was a fantastic show. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you guys for all being a part of it. Mitch and I thank you very much. And of course, as we always say, at the very end of each and every one of these episodes that you can find on X at D643 and Out Pod. You can find on Facebook at D643 and Out Guys. And you can find at YouTube where, Mitchell?
At D643 and Out Pod.
All right. So all of those avenues you can get to us. And we're going to add more because you're telling us that this is successful. You're telling us that you want more. My golly, we're going to do it. Thank you guys very much. And as we always say, the only thing that's fair in life, baseball, get between the third and first base line. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all.